This is Jocko Podcast number 116 with Echo Charles and me, Jocko Willink. Good evening, Echo.
Good evening.
So this then was the culmination. To die. Die in the stinking mud. Twice before, I'd crossed this no man's land, darting from shell hole to shell hole. I'm no hero. I was numb with fear. But this time, a barrage was on. I lay there at the wasteland's edge, thinking, was there any way? To the right lay crack-shot snipers. To the left, in the brush, machine guns. Hungry. Waiting. And fair in the front, great bursting mud clouds playing toss with bodies. "Get through once more, son," the colonel had said. "Communications down, our guns firing short, killing our boys." Yes, it must be done. But how? Wait. The barrage sweeping across the field and back, a deadly windshield wiper. Were I to follow it down, and when I returned, dig in, I might. Now, drunk with fighting fear, I chased the mud cloud down the field, kicking dead bodies, twisting like a ghost. And I laughed and I yelled, "You bastards, you can't get me." Our trenches ahead, almost there. Back came hell's windshield wiper, vomiting death, and I dug in with all I had. "Mom, dear God, help me." On it came. 40 feet. 20 feet. God. My head. Torn from my body. Is this what being dead is like? Peace, quiet, clean white sheets. My head must still be here. It hurts me. These must be my fingers. I can move them. And now a voice. "My boy, for you, the war is over. You hear that, Mom? I'm still alive. I did not die. I'm coming home." And that is a poem that was written by a man by the name of Ralph Moan of East Machias, Maine, who left his job as a civil engineer in Waterville, Maine, to enlist in the Army in 1917. And he was wounded badly on that day, but he did live. And he was decorated for his actions on that day. And the citation for his award reads, "The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress 9 July 1918, takes pleasure in presenting the Distinguished Service Cross to Mechanic Ralph T. Moan, United States Army, for extraordinary heroism in action while serving with Company K, 103rd Infantry Regiment, 26th Division, American Expeditionary Force, near Rayville, France, 26 September 1918. Mechanic Moan, who is detailed as a runner, made several trips carrying important messages across terrain swept by constant fire from machine guns, snipers, trench mortars, and artillery. His disregard for personal safety and devotion to duty in the prompt delivery of messages contributed greatly to the success of the action. And Ralph Mohn, according to his family, never spoke of the war to his children or his grandchildren. But he did live with it every day. And tonight I am honored to have a guest back on the podcast who is also wounded in war, but who has not let that stop him in any way from driving on with his mission and his life and doing more than most people could ever even imagine. Mr. Rob Jones, a Marine, a wounded warrior, and an inspiration to anyone that's lucky enough to come into contact with him. Rob Jones, welcome back to the show.
Hey, you know what? It's an honor to be just a single-time guest on what I consider to be the best podcast on the airwaves.
Well,
but to be a two-time guest is purely rarefied air, and I appreciate you guys deeming me worthy of a second visit. So, and
Absolutely.
to be compared to that gentleman is even greater honor. So,
yeah, you know, I read that a while back, and it was one of those things. As I was reading it, I was thinking about you. I was thinking about Jody, thinking about Travis, thinking about you guys that were wounded bad, and I've heard that before in another book I read about World War I, where guys, they wake up, they think they're in heaven because they see white sheets and they see, there's a nurse there that's talking nicely to them, and they think they're dead, they think they're in heaven. And that reminded me, when I read that, I was thinking about you and having waking up, in a hospital somewhere. And I know you actually woke up. You're not supposed to wake up in Germany, but you did.
No, you're not supposed to. But yeah, for whatever reason, I woke up. I think I need to drink a water or something. Need to hydrate. Yeah, I'm not sure why I woke up. I don't remember much, I definitely didn't see anybody you could mistake for an angel or anything. That's my old squad leader. He's definitely not an angel.
Well, for anyone that's listening that hasn't listened to the first time Rob was on, go back and listen to episode 92, and that's where we go through what Rob went through, how he was raised, growing up, joining the Marine Corps, deployment to Iraq, deployment to Afghanistan, and that's where Rob was wounded, hit an IED, and ended up losing both legs above the knee. But like I said, that didn't stop Rob, and he went from that. And in the podcast, we jumped really quickly through sort of your healing process,
right? And
we jumped right into the fact that you went out and did the Paralympics as a rower, and we jumped into the fact that you rode a bicycle across America, which is across America during the polar vortex, by the way. Yeah, that's all that stuff is covered in 92, but I was actually going back and I was listening to 92, and I realized that maybe it's just your attitude that might have made me kind of do this in the conversation. Your attitude was like, yeah, I lost both my legs, and then I was just competing in the Paralympics. You made it sound like it was easy. That's the way it kind of came across in the podcast, and what I wanted to do today was kind of at least go back and talk with a little bit more detail about that process of going, because it's a long process, right?
Year and a half, yeah. For me, anyway.
Yeah, a year and a half from letting the wounds heal all the way through, where now you're competing in the Paralympics and you're getting around and you're mobile and all that. So you get back. How long does it take for your wounds? Because you can't do anything until your wounds are healed up, right?
No, you can do some stuff. You can't do anything as far as prosthetics are concerned. So in the beginning, the physical therapist would come in and they just basically just have me move my stumps around, and that would be like, lift your right stump 10 times, lift your left one, move it out and back, and then that would be it for the day. Or, I could do, my arms still work, so I would do little pull-ups on my little trapeze bar that I had attached to the bed. But yeah, it was, surgeries every other day. They just come in and take me over, and they just be just cleaning the wound out, any dead tissue or anything that was still left in there, they clean that out. But I had these wound vac machines on that were just constantly sucking the fluids out of the wounds because they were open for the first month. And yeah, so they were just like kind of sucking that stuff out, and it's just a waiting game at that point. I mean, you can do some stuff like I figured out how to slowly got to kind of figured out how to move my body around and move my legs around to get comfortable. And
were you getting like the phantom pains?
Yeah, I didn't get it as bad as Travis had it. I never had to do a ketamine coma in order to. I had it some, and they gave me this stuff called Lyrica, which is like a fibromyalgia medication. And I got it, and I never really had it all that bad. It's pretty much at the same level it is now, where maybe twice a day, my toe will kind of like hurt pretty bad for 4 or 5 seconds, and that's it. But there's some people that have it a lot worse, so I kind of lucked out with that. But yeah, so first month, just kind of learning how to get into the wheelchair. At first I was so sore I couldn't really move very much. So I would have to have a nurse and whoever was in there visiting me. If I wanted to get my wheelchair, I'd be sitting on this little pad, and I'd say, all right, well, I want to go for a roll. And then so the nurse would be on one side and the other person would be on the other side, and they kind of like scoot me onto the wheelchair. And then we'd have to take the wound vac machines and hook them onto the wheelchair and take my catheter, which I was very protective of that catheter.
Sure. Check.
Hang that on there. And then the IV pole would have to come with me. And so then I would just kind of roll myself around the ward a couple times with, my dad or my mom or somebody pushing the IV pole. And yeah, I'd just do that a couple times. Then I'd go see my buddy Daniel because he couldn't get out of bed yet. So I'd go and visit him for a little bit, and then I'd go back to my room, and that'd be pretty much my exercise for the day. And then have like 6 milkshakes. Just eating as much as I possibly could to help with the healing process.
Now, where did you go through the whole woe is me, why did this happen to me? Did you go through that at all? And I mean, I know I've listened to some of your stuff and reading some of your stuff. You talk about the fact that you knew you had to just move to like an acceptance phase immediately. Is that what you did? I mean, how did you get through? Look, man, people hit all kinds of freaking roadblocks in life, and very few of them are as heavy and big of a roadblock as you hit, and you seem to power through that thing like miraculously.
I never entered into an extended period that could be described as like a depression or woe is me or feeling sorry for myself. It would come in very short waves. Where I'd be sitting around, or I would struggle with something maybe, and then after I figured it out, I might sit there for a couple minutes and be like, man. But that'd be about it, and then it'd go away after a minute or two. It'd be kind of like, I almost kind of like if you're talking to a girl in a bar and you like your voice cracks, you just totally blow it, and you look like an idiot, and then you go back to the table, and you're like, man.
Sure.
Like that. It was almost kind of like that. Or just like, man, how did I miss that IED? Man, this sucks. But I didn't really think about it probably this way at the time. I couldn't articulate it at the time like this. But it's like that. Whether or not I deserved. I could acknowledge I didn't deserve it. I didn't deserve to be a double amputee. I didn't, it wasn't, fair. There's a lot of other guys that were running around in that same exact area. They didn't step on it. So it wasn't necessarily fair that I had to be an amputee. I didn't want to be an amputee. But none of that mattered. None of that had any bearing on whether or not I wanted to have an enjoyable life. And I did. I sat there and I was like, well, what is my mission in life? If you really take it to its base level, have an impact, enjoy my life, that doesn't change just because now I'm an amputee. And whether or not it's fair, or the fact that I'm starting from a little bit more of a disadvantaged position now, all that stuff has no bearing on whether or not I want to accomplish my mission. And so realizing that, you just kind of, well, what do I have to do now? I mean, that stuff's in the past, so all I can really affect is how I react to it. And, so I think that's kind of how I skipped all that stuff.
Did you, I know one thing that I remember, and, one of my guys, Ryan Job, he got shot in the face, and he got gravely wounded, and, he ended up blind. And he was down with a lot of casualties that had guys that had really bad brain injuries.
Right.
And he was there for a little while, and these were guys that had been severely wounded and, like I said, had severe brain injuries. So they're having trouble communicating, they're having trouble with motor skills, and these almost all the time come with other physical injuries. And his attitude was, hey, look, I'm taking up a bed here, and we should give it to someone else. These guys are having a much harder time than me. I'm lucky because I didn't get that injury. All I got was blind and some damage to my face. But
right.
it was amazing to me to see a guy like Ryan Job who just looked at himself and said, oh, I'm lucky. I'm lucky. Those guys are worse off than me. Try and give your efforts to take care of these other guys instead of trying to take care of me. I can do okay. Open up this bed for someone else and send me somewhere else. And that's what they did. And I think that, that attitude of like, hey, this could be much worse, right? And to me, first of all, hearing him talk about that was a testament to like the spirit of a guy that just is going to carry on and drive on. And the things that he did before he died was amazing. He graduated college with like a straight A grade point average. He got married. His wife got pregnant. He got a job with a defense contractor. I mean, he was like totally on the path and crushing it, despite the fact that he had one of the best excuses someone could have. Hey, I got wounded. I lost my vision. It didn't slow him down at all. He climbed Mount Rainier. He just did amazing things. And his attitude of, look, I'm in a bad place. Not that bad. I'm going to push on. And like you said, this isn't going to stop me from having a great life and getting after it, basically.
Yeah. A couple things. I'm glad you brought that up because there's definitely something to my own recovery during the time where I got there. So it's kind of like I almost had a feedback loop on myself. So I was immediately thinking about, even in the blast crater, I was like, one of my first thoughts was like, my mom's going to be pretty upset about this. And when I woke up in Germany, the one thing that I did was I asked for a stupid hat. I was like, my squad leader was there, and I said, see if you can find a stupid-looking hat that I can wear when I come out of the ambulance so that when my mom sees me for the first time, she'll see this stupid hat, and maybe it'll make her laugh a little bit, But, obviously I didn't find one. But I think what happened was I had a good attitude in the first week or two. And then that kind of set a precedent for myself. And all my friends that came in, all my family that came in saw me with that solid, positive attitude. And that gave them hope at the same time. So they had that hope. And then I kind of went on, and there was times, they saw me already like that. So if there was ever a time where I was feeling sorry for myself or anything like that, I was like, you know what? My mom, my dad, all these people have already seen me being positive, and if I flip that around, then that's going to hurt them now. And so I have to keep that in mind. So when it's not only about me. So that forced me to make sure I maintain my positive attitude because, they're depending on me, I'm depending on them at the same time. So they're depending on me to stay positive so that they can stay positive. And so we kind of fed off each other. And so, that just kind of snowballed, I guess, until, here we are.
Now, you get, so you're talking like a month of milkshakes and...
Good milk. They weren't mint chocolate chip, but they were good,
And you're just feeding yourself, you're trying to heal up, get the wounds to actually heal. And every time you leave your bed, it's a gut check because you gotta, do the wound draining and all that other stuff. And then after a month, things are starting to heal up. At what point were you able to like get yourself in the wheelchair?
I think I was probably after that first. So I spent a week in the ICU, high on morphine. I don't remember much from that time period. And then I get to the ward, and probably after that first week, maybe 10 days on the main ward, I'd be like, all right, I'm going to try and do this myself, guys. And then it took 5 times the length of time, but I did it. And then from then on, I was doing it on my own. And so, that was kind of the biggest milestone for, being in the hospital during that healing period, was being able to do that. And then, as they slowly took tubes away. Mm-hmm. And then the final milestone for being in the hospital at that point was when my wounds were finally sutured, closed, and I got the skin graft. I had to take a skin graft from my left leg and put it on the inside of my right thigh. And once they did that, and they healed that, they checked it out, made sure it was good, then I was ready to be transferred over to Walter Reed. But I still had stitches, all in or staples or stitches, one of the two. And so after that was done, that's when they transferred me over to Walter Reed. And even then, I still had to wait for those stitches to come out before I could get fitted for prosthetics. And I was probably in the inpatient in the hospital for another 2 weeks while I waited for a room to open up in the outpatient housing. So it was pretty similar in those first 2 weeks. I just had the IV line. That's all I had. And, I could go out.
Are they pumping you with antibiotics the whole time? Or what do they got an IV in you for?
Pain medication.
Okay.
And I think it's probably just a standard, just in case something goes wrong, they have quick access. My buddy Daniel, he had a PICC line like straight into his heart.
What's that?
I think it's just a tube. They just put it into your chest, and I guess maybe it's just for quicker access for pain medication. Eesh. So I'd be in the hospital that first month, and they give you the pain button so you can kind of control it yourself. And it'd be funny because it only meters out so much in an hour. You can hit it like once every 5 minutes or something. But in the first week, I'd be kind of passing out, and whenever I woke up, I'd hit it a couple times just to make sure I'm getting that dosage, because I was scared. Like, what happens if this pain button goes away? Like, I don't want to face that. And so they'd come in after an hour, and the nurse would say, you can only hit this thing once every 5 minutes. Like, yeah, I know. I said, well, you've hit it like 200 times the last hour. They're like, oh, well, I just hit it just to, I fall asleep.
Yeah. And so then during that time when you were still had like stitches, and I know we talked about this a little bit, but you had like the triangle thing hanging above you, where you start doing pull-ups and you start trying to do some kind of upper body workout at that time?
Yeah. I mean, once I got to Walter Reed, I met my physical therapist that day, and we set up the time I was going to come in, 7 o'clock for occupational therapy and 8 o'clock for physical therapy. And we'd be just doing stuff on the mat tables. So you don't have to be wearing legs. You can be working on other stuff while you're waiting for that stuff to heal. So, yeah, I'd be doing kind of dips. I raised the arms of my wheelchair up really high, and I do dips. And, they had stuff you could do, like trunk strengthening exercises. I wasn't the first double above knee amputee to come through Walter Reed. We'd been at war for 9 years. Mm-hmm. So they had all of these exercises already set up. So I'd come in, I'd do my exercises, legless for the day, and just work on what I could while we waited for that stuff while we waited for my skin. And we're just waiting on my skin basically to heal.
How did you feel like How did you feel regaining your strength in your upper body? Were you like back on the gains path? You know what I mean? Were you like, okay, I just did, yesterday I did 8 pull-ups and today I'm going to do 10 and the next day I'm going to, did you get yourself right back in like the old school workout mode from?
Oh yeah.
Just back on the path.
Yeah, man. When I was still in the hospital at Bethesda, I would go into physical therapy, but you guys got a pull-up bar or anything like that? And then, yeah, we have one. They had one in like a closet, and I was like, yeah, I want to do some pull-ups, and so I set the pull-up record for people that had come through, and it got broken by a seal later. But so yeah, I set that pull-up. I was like, let me see how. I never lost the desire to see what I could do. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do a max set of pull-ups and see how many I could do still. But yeah, it was definitely frustrating because I lost a lot of muscle mass. But, once you start doing those exercises, like every time I came in, I wanted to go at 1 more or 2 more or a little bit longer. And I had that same attitude when I started walking. The first day I started walking, I'd maybe stood in my legs for 2 minutes. And the next day I was like, I'm going to try 3 minutes today. Or yesterday I walked 1 time around the little track. I'm going to go twice, just slowly building up and, keep that same
So what's
attitude.
that process? Like standing up for the first time, what does that feel like?
It's wild. I mean, the first thing you got to do is you got to get casted. So they have to make the sockets that go onto your stumps, and they do it. They wrap this plaster around your stump, and they mold it so that it's putting pressure on the right spots, and they take that off. They fill it up with some other kind of plaster material. They take the cast that they made off, and then they pour plastic around that. So then you have basically the mold of your leg. And the first time you step up in it, it's not comfortable at all. It hurts a lot because you're putting pressure on points that you didn't before, and they kind of have to. So you stand up and you're like, okay, well, there's a spot right back there that hurts a lot. So they take it off and they use this hair dryer, make it hot, and they kind of mold it. They push it out so it's not against that spot anymore. And then you put it back on. Okay, that's comfortable. And then you do it for the other one. And for me, yeah, I mean, I couldn't just walk from the first try. I had to have my arms on the parallel bars. Like it was, that slow thing that you see kind of in movies, where I took like maybe 10 steps, and that was it for my first time. I walked 5 steps out.
Is it like balance, or is it
bit
musculature? Like, is it you're using different muscles?
Yeah, so you're walking in a different way than your body's designed to. So when you walk, you just go, kind of forward and back with your legs. You bend at the knee to get it past the ground so it doesn't skip on the ground. Whereas when you're double above knee amputee, you have to swing your legs out to the side at first because you don't have that knee joint. You can't just bring them, forward. So you kind of have to learn that, and it's a lot of the balance. Your musculature has to kind of get used to what muscles you're using to keep your balance now. So that has to be figured out by your brain and your spinal cord. And then on top of that, just developing the resistance to the discomfort. So it's really not comfortable. And that's kind of probably what I didn't get tired. Like I could have stood for longer, but it's just my legs were hurting so bad.
Pain.
Yeah, like you could run a mile or you could run a marathon or whatever, but if you have a blister on your toe, then that's going to stop you.
Yeah, it seems like the balance thing. Like sometimes I've hurt my, let's say hurt my ankle or hurt even something as stupid as had a big cut on the bottom of my foot.
Yeah.
And so you can't use your foot the way you normally do, and it totally throws off your balance. And I can't even imagine you're now trying to balance through the perception of your nerves in your stumps.
Yeah.
And how that feels and how you got to kind of adjust for that. That's got to be like learning how to ski or something, learning how to do a balance type sport, surf or something like that. I can only imagine that's got to be what it's like to get your brain and, like you said, your brain and your spinal cord to be able to adapt to what's happening underneath you when you have a totally new set of sensors down there now.
Yeah, and you have to also keep for a double above knee amputee. I mean, all this stuff I'm saying is just double above knee amputees, but you're also losing 2 joints that help with balance. So an able-bodied person, if they want to make a small adjustment, they use their ankle, and then they can use the knee, and then they can use the hip. But double above knee, all we have is the hip. So it's an extra challenge learning how to make these adjustments with just your hips. But it's a lot like a dog that has a missing leg. The first time he goes to walk, he kind of just figures it out, and he just learns that new method, and it's pretty much a similar thing. You adapt to it, and you figure it out.
And are the first prosthetics that you get, are they articulated, or are they just like straight? Because I know what you've got now is they look pretty damn advanced to me.
Yeah,
I mean,
about as advanced as you can get.
Yeah, you're looking like a freaking Terminator robot over there. But what are you getting at first? Because is it articulating?
So yeah, it's in the balance in that realm. They keep you really short while you're relearning that balance, because just in case you fall. So while you're relearning that balance, they keep you really short. So basically, if I was going to fall, I just put my hand out pretty much and catch myself on the ground. And so while you're relearning this balance, they keep you nice and short because your center of gravity is going to be lower, so it's a lot easier. And then also you kind of learn that hip motion. So they keep you nice and short just to make it a lot easier. And then as you get better, as you get stronger and a little bit better moving around, they make you a little bit taller. But there's no knee joint. It's just you go from your socket, and there's a straight cylindrical pylon made out of metal, and that goes to the prosthetic foot, and you probably have a shoe on the foot, and then that's it. So you stay really short for 3-4 months.
And at this time, are you already thinking about like what kind of crazy stuff you're going to do once you figure this shit out?
Once I had found out about the Paralympics, that was probably my first week when I was at Bethesda in the hospital bed, just researching. I wanted to get back in the gym, and I didn't know what I'd still be able to do in the gym. So I was maybe looking for, I forget what I searched, but like disabled sports or disabled working out or something like that. And I found the Paralympics. And at the time, I wasn't saying to myself, I'm definitely going to commit to going, because I didn't know much about it. And I still had I still had to take, a year and a half to relearn how to walk again. That was numero uno to learn how to do. But yeah, it was kind of in the back of my head. I had found about it, and I was thinking about it. That's kind of how things work for me. The idea is impregnated initially, and like, okay, that's an interesting idea, Paralympics, okay, that's interesting. Riding my bike cross country, okay, interesting. And then I think about it a little bit more, and time goes on. I think, yeah, I could probably do that, and then eventually I'll get to a point where like, all right, I'm going to do it, and then I commit to it. And so at this point, I hadn't committed to it, but I was researching and, contemplating and figuring out the feasibility and, how I would go about it if I wanted to try and make the attempt.
That seems like that would have a massive positive impact on your mindset. So something that I talked about with Jordan Peterson, and he agreed with me on this idea of finding a new mission and having a new mission. So a lot of times, and I'm sure you've seen this too, I've definitely seen it, when guys get out of the military for whatever reason, when they get out, the guys that do well are the guys that have a new mission to go on. And whether it's a new job or whether they're going to be a super dad or whether they're going to go to school and get good grades, those guys do good and in their new mission. The guys that have the most trouble, from what I've seen most of the time, is the guys that don't have a new mission. They get out and they say, well, I might do this, I might do that, I might do something else, but what they're really doing is nothing. They don't have any real direction, and they end up, what's the mission? The mission becomes have another drink, do something unproductive, do what feels good immediately, and it becomes problematic. But it seems like the fact that you found something immediately, you realized that there was a goal that you could go after, even if it was only a little idea at first.
Yeah.
That idea can carry you a long way.
Yeah, and also luckily for me, it wasn't like it's not like I was in Afghanistan one day and then separated the next day. I kind of had a mission that was, it came about by its own because, I just lost my legs. So my first mission was to learn how to walk. So I had that right away. But, while I was taking that time to do that, I was thinking about, what I'm going to do after I get out. And, every guy that gets out of the military, most of the time, when your contract's going to end, so you can start thinking about it earlier. But it's definitely, I agree with you. Having something to work towards is hugely important.
See, I'll tell you that even what you just said. So there's people that they get out and you're saying, hey, I had this new mission because I had to at least learn how to walk. There's people that they get out and they don't have a new mission and they don't figure one out. And that becomes so problematic. And you know what? Let's not just apply it to the military. I'll apply this to every human being. Happens when kids get out of college, happens when kids get out of high school, happens when you go through, you've got something that you're looking at or something that you're focused on, and boom, it goes away. Well, now what are you going to do? And if you don't line something up and don't focus on something, you don't take aim at something, well, then you're not going anywhere.
Oh, yeah. It's like when how you shoot. Do you guys call it table 2 when you're kind of working on shooting like targets that are right in front of you?
We don't call it table 2.
Okay, we call it table 2 because table 1 is kind of the long distance rifle range.
Oh, okay.
But it's almost kind of like when you're doing that and they say, okay, shoot this guy twice and that guy twice. So you do that, and then at the end you scan and make sure there's nobody else around. So It's kind of like doing that. Your mission is to shoot the thing, but you also have to be looking out for other stuff.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's funny too because I think about like when you think about kids that you grew up with. And like high school, they get done with high school, and there's some kids that, okay, I'm going to go into college. I'm going to go to military.
Yeah.
There's some kids that don't know what they're going to do after high school. And what happens to them? What happens to them? They flounder around. They get a little job here that they don't really like. They do something else they don't really like. You just have to be careful of that.
Yeah.
You have to be careful. And I'd say as a parent, that's something to look out for too. You got to look out for your kids and make sure your kids have something to focus on, have something that they're striving for. Because if you don't have anything to strive for, if you're not trying to go anywhere, if you're not on some kind of mission, that's problematic.
Yeah, and so since I had that, everything I did during the day mattered to me because I had something that was vastly important to me that I was trying to achieve. So if I didn't care about whether or not I walked again, then I could just roll around in my wheelchair and it wouldn't matter if I worked out that day. But since I learned how to walk again and be totally independent and get rid of my wheelchair and all that stuff, and be able to run and do everything I was able to do before, that was, the most important thing. And so I fed off that when, I didn't feel like going into therapy because my back hurt or whatever. And whether or not I do that third, fourth set of balance drills or, strengthening exercises, that had an effect on that goal. And so, and the same thing with going to the Paralympics, I wanted to be able to explore that. And so the stuff I was doing in the hospital, it mattered.
So this is interesting because we were actually talking about this the other day. So you end up with, and again, I'm just trying to break down because obviously you're a person that can push through pain and suffering and push through short-term challenges in order to achieve a long-term goal. Mm-hmm. And I think that the way you break it down is you're looking, even when you're suffering from a challenge right now, you're I don't feel like doing another balance drill because my back is sore or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, people hit those kind of obstacles every single day. They don't want to get up in the morning. They don't want to work out. They don't want to do the last set, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you tie those small-term, short-term things, the short-term pain, because you have a long-term goal that's you really care about.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's all a matter of what matters to you most. Is what's more important to you? Learning for me, learning how to walk again, or staying in bed today. Staying in bed would be nice. It would feel good. I'd be able to watch I think what I was watching on Netflix, I was watching 24, the series at the time on Netflix. So I could watch an entire series of 24 today or something. And I could do that, and that would be fun. But at the end of the day, I'm still not going to be any closer to being able to walk again. And I would much rather be able to walk everywhere I went, totally independently, than find out what happens to Jack Bauer, you know? So, and then, you know, at the same time, you know, if you're working on, you know, what people like to lose, if you want to lose weight, you know, would you rather have a milkshake, mint chocolate chip milkshake, or would you rather a cookie dough milkshake? Would you rather have that milkshake, or would you rather, you know, be able to run 10 miles or not get winded when you're walking with your kids or playing with your kids? It's like which one matters to you more? And I always pick that bigger one because, I mean, it's pretty straightforward for me.
Yeah, the delayed gratification. It's the delayed gratification versus the instant gratification.
Delayed, but much more enjoyable.
Yeah, much more enjoyable. Definitely better, and better for your whole life.
Yeah.
Lasts longer too, by the way.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
And enduring. It's an enduring, longer lasting, enduring thing that you end up with.
Mm-hmm.
That's what people need to tap into. That right there.
That's good how you have a way, like almost like I don't want to say scaffolding, but like a way to look at it. Like how when you're presented with like an option, you're conscious of it. B, you have a way to look at it where you're like, okay, which one is important to me?
Yeah.
Which one? You know, is Jack Bauer and 24 important to me, or is walking important to me? You know, so most people, they just go on how they feel. You know, I really don't feel like doing this, so I'll do this. Or I really am in the mood for this, so I'll do it, kind of thing. They don't like kind of, in a way, break it down like how you do. Just from moment to moment, where you'll be like, okay, I have this way to look at it, and I'm gonna look at it this way, and then I can or behave. You know,
that actually is that's pretty good way of looking at it. You put it into a binary calculation.
Yeah.
Right? There's two options.
Yeah, don't go like,
am I going to do the thing that's going to make me better in the long run, or the thing that's going to make me worse in the long run and feels good right now? Which one are you going to do? If you just make that into a binary decision?
Yeah. But even his is like so simple. Which one's important to me? And it's almost like a black or white. You know,
so
which one's
what
important
drives
to me?
you? What's driving your behavior? And then you can even take it another step. Like, again, like the losing the weight example.
Yeah.
You will either want to have the milkshake, or you want to be able to, you know, walk around with the kids. Even if you don't care about, you know, being overweight or you not being able to move your body around, you know, you can still lose the weight by figuring out what, even if you don't feel like going on a diet, like what is it that necessitates you to go on the diet? And for me, so I didn't want necessarily to train every day for the Paralympics. I didn't necessarily want to ride my bike every day on my bike ride or run. I didn't necessarily enjoy doing that. I didn't feel like doing it. But I had to do that because my goal necessitated me to do that. So if you're struggling to get motivated to lose weight just for the sake of losing weight, find something that necessitates you to lose weight that really matters to you, like, you know, not dying when you're 55 of a heart attack.
That'll do it. There's three things that you talked about on the we talked about them on the last podcast, but I kind of breezed over them, and I realized when I listened to it again, I should have talked to you a little bit more in depth, because I think it's helpful for people to hear from you, who's overcome incredible challenges. There's three things that you talked about, and it's actually in the journal, which you have a journal online on robjonesjourney.com, and this is there as well. But number one is writing down goals. Number two is celebrating milestones, and number three is overcoming rationalization. So let's just break those down a little bit. How strict were you with writing down your goals, and do you still do that?
I guess I don't physically, you know, have a pen and paper and write it down. I think what I do now is I'll announce it or something like that, or I'll make it known that that's what I'm planning on doing.
Check.
So when I decided to do my marathon challenge, I did it on Facebook or something, or I put it on all my social media platforms. and then it's out there. Now, okay, now I'm responsible.
So
for it.
this is beyond writing it down.
Yeah, this is like
writing it down and announcing it to the world.
Yeah, or telling people that you want to have the respect of. Like, if I told my wife Pam, like, I am going to do this, and she knows I'm a person that she respects me for living up to what I say I'm going to do, I don't want to lose her respect.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm even though I would have done it regardless, I'm not saying I would have said I would do it and then fall out or back out. The mission, even if the mission became not important to me, there's another aspect of that. You've committed to it then. So that's another aspect of my personality where not only do I want to help veterans, but now I've committed to something I said I'm going to do, and I've given my word. And now there's people that are kind of relying on me to do that. And if I say I'm going to do it, and then I say, oh, never mind, I'm not going to do it, then they're actually losing a little bit of hope, maybe, because they were hoping I was going to do it and they were going to get something out of it. And now they're I'm not doing it, so they're kind of losing that benefit.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so it's beyond writing it down. It's writing it down and announcing it, celebrating milestones.
Yeah, so it's really hard to stay motivated when there's this obscure goal that is 2 years away or a year and a half away, and you're not really seeing huge progress towards it every day. You're getting like a millimeter every day. It gets old. You feel really motivated in the beginning, right? Because you're pumped up and you have tons of energy. And then and at the end, you can see it. You can smell the barn. And you can see it. So you find the extra energy in yourself. But in that middle part where you're not even sure that you're going to be able to do it, and it's so far away, and you're like, man, I'm only like halfway, and I've done all this stuff, and now I still have to do all that again. It helps to pick stuff along the way that is going to be there. That kind of, all right, I'm going for that far away thing, but right now I'm going to that, and that's what excites me. So when I was in the hospital, getting in the wheelchair was my first little milestone. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a year, and I didn't even know how long it was going to take me to learn how to walk again. Right. At least I was thinking a year and a half, 2 years. That's a long time, and with a lot of work in between. So, all right, right now, just get into the wheelchair. And then, all right, well, learn how to do it on your own. And then after that, get your legs. And then figure out how to walk with only one cane instead of 2 canes keeping you up. And then drop the other cane. And that's another milestone. And then you get your bionic knees. And so you probably go back to the canes for a while. And then when you have those, you take away that cane and then take away the other one. And then you learn how to run. And then you learn how to ride the bike or whatever. So you just keep finding little things along the way. And, when I was training for triathlons, I do this on a small scale. I would have 8 2-minute all-out sprints on my bike to do. And I'd be sitting there on the first one, and I'm like, oh, my God, I have 8 of these to do. The first one would just blow me up. I'm like, oh, my God, I have 7 more. And I would just be like, you know what, just focus on this next one. Just do this one, and then we'll focus on the next one after that. And then I would even trick myself sometimes. I'd be like, all right, I'd be on my 6th one. I'd be so tired. I'm like, all right, you know what? If I can maintain this speed, or if I can maintain my power output for this entire 7th one, I'll skip the 8th one. But I'll treat myself. I'll skip the 8th one. And I do the 7th one. I'd be like, all right, I'll just do the 8th one because,
I do that sometimes
to trick
too.
myself.
It works.
So yeah.
So it's interesting. So what you've talked about, there's a dichotomy in this thing, and I've talked about this before. I've talked about before multiple times. I don't even know if I've talked about I must have talked about it on the podcast, but I talk about it with people, which is you have long range stuff and you have short range stuff, mm-hmm. and what you have to do is you have to put both those in your mind, and you have to shift the focus back and forth between the two to whichever one is going to get you moving. Yeah. Because when the goal is too far away, you're like, you know what? It's not going to really make a difference if I skip this thing today. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah. The goal is too far away. It gets blurry. And so what you need is you need to put, okay, I'll just do the short goal. Yeah. Well, after the daily grind beats you down on the short goal, you start to forget what the long-term goal is, and you go, you know what, I don't really need to do this workout today, or I don't need to do, I can eat this food, or I can do whatever, because it's not going to make a big impact on the long thing. What am I doing anyways?
Yeah.
Then you got to look back at the long goal, and that's right, I have this thing that I'm trying to make happen, and it's these small goals that are going to get me there. So you got to shift, you got to have both the long-term goal, that's got to be something that you really want to achieve. You got to understand why. Like you said, you got to understand why it is you want to achieve it. You can't just be something that you don't care about. And then you got to have that as your primary driving force. But your secondary driving force, which is equally important, is these short-term things that you can get to that are there, that are close, that are you can achieve. Even if it's 2 minutes. Even if it's, I did Tabata on the air bike the other day. Bro. Yeah, I was there. I was like, and my daughter was there. My daughter that wrestles, she was there. And so she's kind of like calling me out, but in a positive way. She's a positive person,
yeah,
right?
You're hype man.
Yeah, she was hyping me. Yeah. And I put out hard because she was there going, come on. You know what it's like when your daughter's going, come on, Dad.
Yes.
Push harder. You're like, oh,
awesome.
Yeah. I'm gonna get some. I wanted to die. I had the you know the blood taste in your mouth.
Oh, that copper taste.
Yeah, that copper taste. Yeah,
yeah,
whatever that thing is. So I had some of that going on. But yeah, you have the short term and you have the long term goals. You got to have them both, and they've got to be attached somehow. But you got to lean on which one is going to get you to do what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do. That's a little psychology behind just getting after it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
There's a little psychology behind just getting after it. Little head games. Echo and I were talking the other day, and he was kind of surprised because I was talking about there's one workout that I do which is it's my hardest and most brutal workout, and it's in the field manual, but it's a 20 rep squat. You take a weight that you can squat 10 times, and you do it 20 times. And like after rep 12, every single rep is it's pain. And then you do that, and then you lay on the floor for 20 minutes, and then you get up and you do it again, and you lay on the floor for 20 minutes and you get up and do it again. So it's 3 sets in 1 hour. It's a 1 hour workout. But I was telling Echo, I was like, yeah, there's times where I'm in the middle of like set 2 and I'm on rep 14, and I'm like, I don't even think I want to be strong. I don't want to be strong. I don't even care if I'm healthy. I just want to this is horrible. Why would I be doing this right now? This is stupid. Yeah, relief, any kind of relief. But actually what gets me to push through those is I think to myself, oh, you hear that? That's actual weakness in your mind right now. Actual living weakness gets a voice in your mind right now. Are you going to listen to it? Are you going to listen to it? No, you're not going to listen to it.
Are you doing them straight through, or are you taking breaks?
That's it's an old school workout that I originally got from. Well, there's a book called Super Squats. Good stuff. There's a book called Super Squats. And that book has this workout, but actually that book only has you do one set. You do one set. I was the idiot that thought to myself, well, if one set is good, how about I do 3 sets of that? And it's brutal. It's brutal. Yeah.
And once you think of it, it's like, well, I have to do it now.
Yeah. No, that's another thing. That's another thing I say is if you don't really feel like working out, okay, that's fine. Write down what you're going to do and then just do it. Just turn off your brain and just do what you're supposed to do. Just put the numbers down and do what you're supposed to do. You're not every day's all happy. This is great. I feel myself getting stronger. No, I feel like I'm going to puke. That's not cool.
But that's good. That's like kind of you're talking about how if you go by how you feel every day, like I feel like doing this, or I'm feeling motivated, or feeling where just like you're saying, Rob, where you are in the habit of looking at it a certain way, like what's important to me. Kind of how you feel is kind of shuffled to the side. It's like what's important. Okay, now I'm going to get moving.
Yeah, feelings are not
valid.
Generally, not a good thing to rely on to make things the way you're supposed to. They're generally not a good.
But
thing.
It can trick you though. You know how just like how you're saying in the beginning, when you first decide to do something.
Oh, yeah.
Like New Year's resolution, whatever. Like it's a real common thing. We're at the beginning, exciting. I'm gonna start this new thing, and then at the end, it can be because you see the goal right there. We're about to do it. Kind of thing. But in the middle, It's like, yeah, so feeling I don't want to say, yeah, you're right. Don't rely on it, but it can trick you because in the beginning when you have that feeling like you want to, it's almost like you think it's going to be there the whole time.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
this
no,
new
it's not.
thing, this is the new thing for me. I've never felt any like this about anything I've ever done. I'm excited about this one. Then it goes away, and then you're like, oh,
And
we're not doing that anymore.
You always have that energy at the end, like of I bet like the last
Oh,
one of that
yeah.
Tabata
Yeah.
that you did was like,
yeah, the last one.
and it's like, well, where was all that energy?
Yeah.
At number
And it's
14.
like, have you guys ever heard of the central governor theory of fatigue?
No.
Well, it's basically about, it's a different, so, see if I can do this without making it super long. There's two different,
We got 8 hours of recording time.
there's two different
18.
theories on how your body, I guess, processes fatigue or what it exactly it is. And so there's I think it's called the catastrophic theory, where basically you're doing your Tabatas and something breaks down, and then like you run out of energy, you totally deplete yourself of glycogen or whatever, and then you can't because you don't have any more glycogen, so your muscles just don't work. And then there's this other theory, which is kind of the accepted theory now, that your brain has a governor in it, and it's getting all this information from your muscles and your senses. It's getting all this information. It's calculating how much energy it meters out. And so when you're doing your Tabatas, the first one, you have all sorts of energy. So your brain's like, go. And it's connected to your subconscious, and your conscious are kind of connected. So you kind of know how many sets you do, and your brain actually calculates that into its how it decides to do this. So that first one, you're like, oh, tons of glycogen available to me, so I can just blow through this first one. And then as you go, your brain's getting these signals that you're running out of glycogen. Maybe the calcium to contract the muscles is kind of getting low, and so it kind of dials you back automatically by contracting less muscle fibers. And so you kind of and it makes you feel fatigue. So they say that fatigue is actually, fatigue and pain are actually emotions. So it makes you feel these emotions.
Fatigue is a lie.
So it makes you feel this, and it kind of dials you back. And then on that last one, you know that this is your last one. So it's like, all right, well, we're done after this, so I'm going to let it go.
Yeah.
And then... So and that's the theory. So it's kind of that.
It's kind of, so there's this thing called I think I told you this, Golgi tendon, I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, Golgi tendon organ. It's a little regulator. Mm-hmm. And they're essentially like clusters of nerves that go in. And so this is more like high intensity. Like I'm going to do a 2 rep, 1 rep, 2 rep, 3 rep, whatever, max. So that's regulated by your brain. So when you get too much stress on your muscle, your brain says, hey, that's too much stress. We're going to stop the muscle contraction or let off. Usually it stops it. That's why if you go for a 2 rep max, 1 rep max, you can get it here, and then you just boop, and it fails. You fail. Mm-hmm. But if you can get, if it doesn't fire, you'll go, and you'll push. Sometimes you'll pause, you know, and you can still put, like, why did you just fail the other time? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's that. So, and then if you go to lower intensity stuff, then it goes more into the glycogen. Like, you ever seen like a marathon runner or you know, some real long, like, I don't know, an obstacle course or something, where the guy's like, mentally, you can tell he's not going to quit. Yeah. But his legs are like shivering and shaking, and it's like he's almost like he's going to pass out or something like that. Yeah. So that's more that. That's like your physical capability, the physical energy system is failing. That's, you know, so that's a different thing. So
it's funny though, because you know, like, I'm sure when you were in boot camp or going through buds, like, how many push-ups are you going to do? You're just going to keep doing push-ups. Yeah. You literally just keep doing push-ups and 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 push-ups. And sometimes you lay there flat on your face for like 20 seconds, but then they say keep going, and so you just keep going, and then you keep going for a little while, and then you lay on your face for a little while, and then you keep going. Like, you can just keep going more. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, unless you get to that.
Now, sometimes on like a run, someone would pass out, and like that would be that. Yeah. So what's that?
So, that's
according to this, there would be your brain basically shuts you. So you see somebody running at the end of a marathon, and they're like, and their legs aren't working. That's kind of their body. They've been able to somehow push through all the pain and all that stuff. They've been motivated to push through. And then finally your body gets to a point that if we keep going, we are going to die. So I'm shutting you down. And it just hits the shutdown button, and then your legs just stop where it will just stop contracting your muscles.
Yeah.
I don't remember how we got on this subject, but
pushing through.
Pushing through, yeah.
But it's like the engine is still going, but the fuel doesn't get to the engine. So the engine starts, you know,
like
in those marathon situations. Yeah. But in like a higher intensity stuff, it seems like, you know, given what I know about the Golgi tendon organ situation.
Seems like you're a Golgi tendon expert.
Yes, but here, this is when I learned about it in college. But when I tore my bicep, you know, guys will lift real hard and just tear their muscle off their bone.
Yeah.
Because when you train heavy, you're training to mitigate the effects of the Golgi tendon, or like huge rushes of adrenaline will do it too. You know, you hear the story about the lady, she saw the car
lifts the car
off the kid. Yeah. So basically, you're just bypassing the Golgi tendon organ because of these extreme situations.
Yeah.
But by nature, try to lift up a car, you kind of can't. And the same, I mean, most of us can.
You kind of can't.
Yeah. But when you're doing like a 1 rep max, like when you test for that, you see it all the time where, you know, the guy, let's say, I don't know, he does 355, right? Yeah. There's like a pause because he's pushing so hard and he's barely, and he gets it. Put on 360, 5 pounds more, he gets it like a quarter of the way up and it just falls on his chest, you know, because it fires and boom, muscle shut down. That's what that is.
Yeah, and when you're doing the heavy, you're also teaching your body to, most people can only contract 30% of their muscles at one time because their brain doesn't let them. Because if they contracted all of your muscle fibers at the same time, it could produce an injury.
Yeah.
So when you lift heavy, your brain is kind of learning, all right, I can contract this many. Oh, okay, now I can contract this many. And the best people still can only contract 50% of their muscle fibers.
Like Olympic lifters.
Yeah, that's like...
Because they're just...
Yeah, exactly. Or really heavy power lifters.
Yeah.
So... Now, on the last podcast, we talked about the Paralympic rowing. So, and we talked about you biking across the country again, which is from Maine to San Diego. And again, if people should go listen to those on podcast 92. But when you were on last time, you were talking about your latest announcement, your latest goal that you had written down and announced to everybody, which was that you were going to run 31 marathons in 31 days, which is just kind of a little bit psycho. And actually, you wrote down, I'm going to read this excerpt from your online journal. Here we go. Back to the journal. I can't. This is an expression that is vilified in our minds beginning at a young age. Every time a young child announces this decision, they are corrected. The first adult that hears it asks them whether or not they have even tried. Generally, this confrontation will result in the child giving their task another attempt until their attention span moves on to something else. The adult will see this and chuckle to themselves with knowledge that this is just a child who is yet to learn the art and virtue of perseverance. By the time this child comes of age, however, they will have been told by adults more times than they could count that there is no such thing as can't. It is interesting, then, to think about how many adults seem to proclaim this expression in their lives. Is it because, like many things that adults tell children, they are simply telling the child a general rule that the child must follow, but can be broken once one is grown? Or is it because these adults are simply repeating what they were told as children without thoroughly examining what the phrase "I can't" truly suggests? If you confronted an adult that claims they can't do something with the same question about whether or not they have tried, the answer will almost always be yes. Adults have learned enough to know that it is unreasonable to say they can't until they have at least tried once. Therefore, the real question that we should be asking in response is, have you tried everything? Have you exhausted every possible option, scenario, combination, tool, and approach? I do not simply refer to the ones that you knew of at the time you decided to undertake your task. I mean, have you also researched possibilities that you had known about? Have you determined whether or not there is another person out there that has performed the exact same task you are attempting, or at least something similar? Have you exhausted this research? Have you read every book, blog, journal, magazine, bathroom stall, and website? If the answer to any of these questions is no, then go back and try again. Because you don't truly know if you can do something until you've tried absolutely everything. The fact of the matter is that rarely, if ever, is the answer to all these questions yes. Therefore, what is it that people actually mean when they say, I can't? A more accurate but more verbose way of saying it would be, I don't care about or want enough this task or the resultant benefits of it in order to do all that is necessary to achieve it. I was told countless numbers of times by people during my month of marathons that they couldn't run one marathon, let alone 31 straight. Every now and then, when I had time, I would discuss what they'd said. We would jointly conclude that if something they cared about and depended on them doing so, it would be possible. The most common example I used was, if someone had a gun to your child's head, do you think you could do it then? Therefore, the phrase, I can't, denotes a lack of investment as opposed to a lack of potential or ability. I do not mean to say that every person I had this conversation with should have had the motivation to run marathons. It was something that I had decided to do, not them. I merely wanted to express to them what I am expressing here. Given the right purpose and enough time, you can. What happens if someone has said they can't? We have asked them if they've done everything, and the rare cases happen, and they honestly say yes. Do we concede that then they can't? Nope. If everything in existence has been attempted enough to determine that it won't work, then congratulations, you've been awarded the honor of being the person who must invent the method, or the tool, or determine the right combination. Whether or not you will, once again, boils down to how much you care and time. It may end up being that a person ends up trying for their entire life. But I suggest removing the phrase, I can't, from your lexicon and replacing it with, I can't yet. Do this so that you don't risk being on your deathbed saying, I didn't. So.
Yeah, and I don't mean to, like, if somebody comes up and says I can't do something, I'm not going to, you know, I know what they're really saying. And I'm not going to judge them. I don't care if you don't care about this thing. It doesn't matter to me. But you should just be a little bit more accurate in what you're saying. You know, I'm not, like, if you say I can't run a marathon, that's fine. That's fine. You don't want to run a marathon. You don't care about running. It doesn't matter to you, and that's your personal choice. You know, but to say that you can't do it, having never even attempted it, is just not an accurate statement.
So where'd you get the idea to attempt 31 marathons in 31 days?
So after my bike ride, I tried to make the Paralympics for a triathlon, and I did not succeed. I failed in that attempt. But with every failure, there is a lesson learned, and I learned when I was training for a triathlon that I was pretty good at running. I was able to run the 5K triathlon, 5K distance at the end of the triathlon in 18 minutes flat, which is pretty fast. That's maxing out the Marine Corps PFT. You can't get any faster than that. And so it's pretty fast. So I realized, you know, I have a decent talent for running, and I had run the Marine Corps marathon the year before, and so I knew that I could run a marathon. And I was just kind of, you know, after this failed attempt to make the Paralympics, just kind of thinking about what my next mission could be, and I wanted to do another thing like my bike ride. And I had heard about other people doing this kind of thing where they do, you know, 50 marathons in 50 days in 50 states, or 50 Ironmans in 50 days in 50 states. So, you know, I decided I wanted to do marathons, and I kind of put my own little spin on it. And I said, well, you know what, I want to get this story in front of as many eyeballs as I can. So to do 31 marathons straight in my backyard isn't really going to do that. So I need to do. I could go down to the trail every day for 31 straight and do it, and nobody would ever care, and nobody would ever find out about it. And it'd be the same amount of. It'd be just as impressive to do. And so I want to get this in front of as many eyeballs as possible. So I need to do it in major cities where there's a lot of people that can find out about it and spread it that way. And so I figured, all right, I'll take that same formula and do 31 marathons all in different cities. And I picked 31 because I was trying to figure of a good number. So I started with the 20 number, which is the number associated with number of veteran suicides every day. I figured that'd be a pretty powerful number. But after thinking about that, I kind of figured it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough marathons in a row. And I figured by the time...
More marathons in a row.
By the time I got started with that, by the time I got kind of some momentum going, it'd pretty much be over. And so I didn't figure to have it as big an impact. So I wanted to do more. So I was like, well, what about 50? And so I was like, well, okay, 50, I could probably do it if I trained enough for it. But 50 might be too many. It might be too long. So by the time I started getting going, and then I'm at 40, I still have 10 more, people are going to kind of maybe lose interest and be like, oh, is that guy still doing that? Because I found out about the Iron Cowboy doing his 50 Ironmans in 50 days, and I kind of had that same thing where I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. I was following him for the first couple weeks, and then eventually I'm like, oh, is he even finished it? Oh, wow. And I kind of lost interest. So I'm like, all right, well, what if I just did it for a month? I think people can probably pay attention for a month and will really be interested for a month before they really move on. It's like, all right, month. Okay, month of marathons, and the longest month is 31. So I picked 31. And I have to say, when you know what you're doing is hard when you come on Jocko podcast and he says, this is insane. And Jocko Willink says something is insane, it's the right level of intensity.
So what kind of miles did you put in to get ready for it? And how long did you train for it?
I trained about 18 months for this specifically. And I say that knowing that I had been an athlete training just about twice a day every day for 5 years at the time. So I had that huge history of being an athlete to begin with. And then on top of that, I put the 18 months of training specifically for this. And so the way it would work would be I would do a 6 week block where I was applying a certain stress. And so my first 6 week block would be, I was just working on getting long distance, because when I was running triathlons, I only ever did 5K max. So I would run an hour. I'd probably run 3 times a week. It would be an hour, 90 minutes, and another hour, and they'd be spaced out by a couple days. So I'd do 6 weeks of that, and then I would do a little test block. And my first test block was running the Marine Corps Marathon again. So just one marathon. And then I'd do another 6 week chunk where I would change the stress and make it a little bit harder. So I would either run a little bit longer on my really long run for the week, or I would block them together, maybe like run an hour and a half Wednesday and then run an hour Thursday. Kind of change up the blocking. And after that 6 weeks, I would do again, and I would do 2 marathons. And the first time I attempted 2 marathons, I actually failed. I couldn't. I ran the first one the next day. I ran maybe half a marathon, and I quit. I was like, I can't.
Had you already said you were going to run 31 marathons when that happened?
At this point, yeah.
Oh, that's reassuring.
Yeah. So I was like, all right. But I kind of knew.
31 or 2.
Or 2. Yeah, like 2. Well, I told my friends, I was like, yeah, I tried to run 2, and I didn't. They were like, but
What was the failure based on?
I didn't eat enough the day before. So part of the reason I was doing these test blocks was figuring out, first of all, pacing. Different ways to pace it to make sure I didn't blow up, and then figuring out how much I needed to eat, and figuring out what it was going to feel like. And so that first time I attempted 2, I didn't eat enough carbs the day after that first marathon. So I was just totally depleted the next day. So I was like, okay, it wasn't a lack of willpower or a lack of kind of ability at that time. It was just my approach at that time wasn't wasn't right. So I was like, okay, I didn't really panic about that because I kind of knew what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, all right. And so I go, and then I do 6, and I kind of just repeated that for the year and a half, where a 6-week chunk, and I just change it, block them together a little bit more, run longer. And then I tried 3 marathons, and I succeeded, and it was pretty easy. Not easy, but, I was like, all right, I did
feasible.
3.
It became
like,
feasible.
all right, 3, I don't feel that bad, And then I did another 6-week, changing the stress again, longer and blocked together more. I ran 5. I was like, all right, 5, okay. And I would mess around with the different pacing strategies, different ways of breaking up each marathon, taking breaks and that kind of thing, and eating different foods just to see how that I would react to that. And then after 5, I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna do any more than 5, because if I do more than 5, I'm just gonna want to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really want to. So 5 was enough. I felt really good after 5. And then after that, I just kind of trained through for maybe 3 more months. But I kept, every 6 weeks, I kept adding more mileage until I think the last 12 weeks, I was running a marathon every Thursday. And
how many total miles were you putting in a week?
in that last 12 weeks, probably 60. Like my you know how they say a deadlift starts at 135 pounds,
Mm-hmm.
Like my runs would start at 2 hours. I wouldn't do anything less than 2 hours. And then, I would do that marathon on Thursday, and I would run 2 hours the day before and 2 hours the day after. And the reason I was doing that was just run a marathon so many times leading up to it that the thought of running one marathon isn't really, it's just norm. It became normal to me. And so I was trying to get that
How long would it
mental.
take you of running to run a marathon at the pace, at your sustained 31-day pace?
At my sustained, it was interesting. So
were you running like 8-minute miles, 9-minute miles?
usually it would be between 8:30 and 9-minute miles. And it was interesting because in the summertime, I was running like a 4.5-hour marathon of total running time. And so all the predictions I put on my website were like, oh, I'm probably going to finish in about this amount of time. But that was during the hot and humid summer in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when I was doing this, it was in the fall time, so I was actually able to run faster. And people would come out and say, what the heck? You said you're going to be running like 10-minute miles, then you're running 8:30s or 9 minutes. And what else was interesting was I figured my first marathon I'd be fresh, and that would be my fastest marathon. And so that was in London. It was about 4 hours, roughly, of running time with breaks. I would take 3 20-minute breaks. 4 hours of running time. And then it kind of did follow that trajectory where Philadelphia, New York, and Boston were a little bit slower, like 4:05, 4:15, somewhere in there. And then after I got there, I actually started getting faster. So the next, all the way into Chicago, my fastest one was my 10th one in Chicago was 3:50 and of running time. And then after that, it kind of just leveled off, and I'd usually be going somewhere between 3:50 and 4 hours.
The human body's amazing.
Yeah, and all this
amazing
stuff that I've been able to adapt to, and even I still wasn't able to predict that I would actually get faster. I didn't expect that. And so, this goes to show you that the body can adapt to even more than you think.
What are the biggest challenges of regular running and running with prosthetics on?
So yeah, one of the things I had to figure out was, or one of the things I learned in my first and second Marine Corps marathon was that I needed to figure out how I was going to prevent skin breakdown.
Right.
So I would run, after my first marathon, I ran, and then I took my legs off, and it was just blood. I'd like take the liner off, and just blood just shot everywhere. And it wasn't all blood, but it was like kind of blood mixed with sweat.
Right.
I was like, oh my God, what did I do to myself? I was scared. I was like, did I mess up my skin graft? Is that thing? Because those things can be kind of sensitive. And it ended up just being a little blister, I rubbed the skin off, and it's like the size of that big. But I knew if I ran again the next day, that's going to get bigger, and that's going to totally derail the whole thing. So I had to figure out a way that I could avoid getting like my skin rubbing off. And so I started messing around. I wear these things called liners that kind of wick the sweat. They kind of collect the sweat to help with clamminess. And so usually I would put those on, and they would go all the way around the end of my stump. It'd be like a sock on the end. So what I did was I cut that off at the end, and so it's kind of basically like a rash guard on my thigh, and it wouldn't go down to the end of the stump. So I cut that off.
And why didn't you want it to go down to the end?
So what my theory was, it's kind of a cloth. It's a cloth material. So what I figured was, and the liner itself is a silicone, and I didn't figure that the silicone would be creating a whole lot of friction. So what I figured was maybe that little liner, as comfortable as it was still fabric, so it was probably just 40,000 steps still rubbing the skin off. So all right, so I'll cut that off and see what happens. And that was good, but it still didn't fix everything. So what I ended up doing was, for my cycling experience, I'd use chamois cream on your butt, to help prevent saddle sores. It's like, well, maybe I'll take this chamois cream and put it on these spots that I know tend to get rubbed. So I would goop up. I would just take a huge goop and just slather it on there, and that seemed that fixed it pretty good. Awesome. And so I was like, all right. So I figured that method out. So that's one of the things is trying to figure with running with prosthetics is figuring out how to avoid that skin breakdown. And that's kind of numero uno, because you can be as strong as you want, but if you can't put your leg on because the skin hurts so much, then all that strength, it doesn't matter.
So what'd you do with your diet? Were you just pounding calories? Just eating everything in sight?
Yeah, so I approached my diet a little bit differently than most you might expect for marathons. I did a low-carb diet. Well, what would be a low-carb for this kind of thing? Mm-hmm. So I was using this in all my training and all my pacing and all my eating. I did this thing called the Maffetone method, and it's basically this guy Phil Maffetone figured that you should do all your training at an aerobic level. So he figured out this through experience. He calculated he came up with an equation to calculate your maximum aerobic heart rate. It was 180 minus your age, and then there's other little adjustments you can make to that. So my Maffetone heart rate was 149, and so I'd never ran anything over 149.
So you on a heart rate monitor all the time?
Yeah, I had a TomTom watch, and I had one, and then my wife has one, so I had two on when I was running my marathon, just in case one messed up. And so I ran all my training, and all my marathons were run at as close to that 149 heart rate. And what it does is trains, instead of like making you strong, your muscles stronger, it actually trains your cardiovascular efficiency. So when you start out, you'll be running at 149 heart rate, and you'll be pretty slow. But as you do that more, your heart and lungs will become more and more efficient. So eventually, you'll be running at that same 149 heart rate, but you'll be running twice as fast because you're becoming more efficient. So I just approached it like that, or I kind of figured it'd be better to do it that way, because the more glycolysis and the more carbohydrates you use, the more your body's going to have to, they're more destructive to your body. So I'm like, well, in order to be able to run these, I have to run them at a maintainable pace and in a maintainable way. I can't just go out and run as fast as I can every single one. I had to pace it. And so I figured that's how I was going to pace it, keeping my heart rate under 150, not using those carbs. And so that also allowed me to be able to eat just really high fat. I think I had between 150 and 175 grams of carbs a day, and that's what I limited it to. And then I would eat, during the run, I would eat 3 bonk breaker bars, one at each of my breaks. And they're just like these little energy bars. And that would keep me going. That would be my kind of a lot of carbs there. So that would kind of keep me going during the run. I would just drink water whenever I got thirsty. And then after I ran, we had pre-made all my meals. And we just made this super calorie dense cheese and meat sauce that we froze. We put it all in the freezer. And it was just the densest, the calorie densest stuff you could probably, whole containers and cream and cheese and all this stuff. So super dense. and my mom would heat up a bowl of that for me, and I would take a bag of pork rinds and put that in the chili and mix that in there and eat the whole thing. And a lot of the times before I even ran, I would eat another bag of pork cracklings. So I'd have 2 bags of pork rinds, this big-ass bowl of meat sauce and cheese sauce, and then I would eat some sweet potato chips, things like that. If somebody brought us donuts, I'd have a donut,
We have issues with that.
Violation.
Pork rinds good, donuts no.
If people could see what just happened to Jocko's eyes when I say I didn't don't, thought he was going to come across. So I'd eat that, and then for dinner I'd eat eggs and bacon.
And the whole time you got an RV because you did this in 31 different cities.
Yeah.
You started off in London, and then you flew back to America, and then started the grind. New York, Chicago, just going around the country.
Yep.
And your wife and a little support team was in the RV.
Yep. So it was 4 of us. It was Pam, my wife.
What kind of RV did you have?
Coachman Murata, I think.
Get some.
It's like a 35. Do you have an RV?
I do. you have you had a 35-footer, huh?
Yeah, it was a Class A 35-foot king size bed in the back.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
Don't
you sleep good in RVs?
long as you're not moving.
I don't know why. I sleep like a baby in RVs.
I slept well, but it's not totally comfortable when you're driving down the highway at 60.
Yeah.
It's pretty bouncy back there. And actually, it made it... This is something I didn't expect, was it made it kind of hard to eat being in the back. So I'd have to eat all this stuff. And by being in the back of that RV for 5-6 hours, I would start to get a little bit...
being in the back of an RV is a lot more bouncy than being in the front.
Oh yeah, big time.
That's
behind the axle, and there's so much weight.
Yeah.
So it'd be Pam, my wife, team leader. She drove some. She drove a lot. I wasn't really in charge of the. You
were just run.
The day to day. Yeah, my
just
job
be
was
quiet and run.
Yeah, exactly. Well, run when I needed to run. When I needed to do interviews, run my mouth.
Oh.
Do that, and then that was it pretty much. And then, but Pam, she was doing everything. Driving, setting up, scheduling all my interviews, working with these reporters that are like, oh, we want to do this at 6:30. Can we make that happen? She'd schedule it in, and then calling ahead to the venues that we had decided to run at, squaring that away. Okay, where can we park? We're coming now. And there's probably so many other jobs that I didn't even know about that she was doing. And then, just taking on a boatload of stress for her. And then my mom she'd be kind of Pam's assistant. She'd be in charge of kind of keeping me fed and hydrated during when I was running, making sure I didn't need anything. And then afterwards, she would make my meals. And then one of her most important jobs was she's a massage therapist, so she'd give me 2 massages every day after I ran while we were driving to the next place. And then I also had a driver who did most of the driving, and then he just kind of helped out around the RV, like whenever Pam needed him to do something, he would do it.
What kind of people joined you on the runs? I know you were telling me yesterday some Royal Marines in England.
Oh yeah,
joined you.
That's got it out there. I mean, tons of military. If I had to categorize, I mean, it's just people from all walks of life. Ultra runners would find out about it, and people that ran, people that didn't even run would come out. A lot of military. I would say 50% of the people though that came out, I would say, how'd you hear about this? They say Jocko podcast. No bullshit. That's awesome. There. At least 50% of them.
That's killer. The troopers are not playing around.
Yeah, no.
They're there to support.
They're doing major support. And then, should be a lot of guys that I deployed with came out and supported. A lot of cops, a lot of fire departments. But there really wasn't one niche. It was just kids people would come out. Yeah, kids would come out. People with their parents, whole families would come out for the day and run. It was awesome. I had kids that ran their first ever marathon with me.
That's awesome.
And a lot of people they'd be running their first marathon. And then I had one lady. She's like, "Well, I'm running a marathon next week, but I'm going to run one with you." And she PB'd, and so it'd be all sorts of people. I'd come out of the RV in the morning, and there'd just be people that had been waiting there for me to come out, and no matter what, and it didn't matter.
What time in the morning would you start running?
I would usually start around 7. unless I had some kind of big interview. Like I had a Fox and Friends interview when I was in New York, so I started at 7:30 or 8. But I would try and be pretty religious about starting at 7. And then, people would be out there. It didn't matter if it was 20 degrees in Denver, they'd be out there. If it was raining, they'd be out there. You know, it was awesome.
That is awesome. What was the hardest part, or did you meet any hard parts during the trip? Was there any? And actually, I remember when you were getting ready to go.
Yeah.
This is pretty cool. I'm like, hey man, like what if you're not going to make it? Like, what if you can't? And what I was actually thinking about, your legs, and I mean, I know that, I've got other friends that have prosthetics, and I know that it's a grind, and it rips your skin apart. And I was kind of thinking, that's what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking like, oh, you were just going to get tired and quit, but I was thinking that there might come a point where you physically weren't going to be able to do this without, causing massive damage to your body, and possibly, getting infections and everything else. And I said, what if something happens? And you were like, no, I'm gonna finish it. I was like, okay, well, there you have it.
Yeah, well, that was something I was concerned about too. I didn't know how my body was going to react to it, and I didn't know for sure. I never knew, even up to the last mile of the last one. I would never have said I'm definitely going to finish this, because anything can happen. I could have my prosthetic on twisted a little bit, and then that rubs off skin on my skin graft, and then that causes it to die or something, and then I'm screwed, and then I can't continue. So I never knew for sure, but I believed that as long as everything kind of went according to plan, then it was possible, as long as no catastrophic events happened. And I was feeling confident. I was very confident the whole time. And then I got all the way around to Texas. And I had been really lucky with the weather all the way around. We get to Texas, and we're hitting a heat wave in Texas. And it was I woke up in the morning in Houston, sweating already. It was ridiculous. I was just covered in sweat waking up in Houston. It was like 100% humidity, probably like 75, 80 degrees just to start the day.
Houston, get some.
Oh my God. And heat gets to me pretty easily. It's the one thing that could really slow me down. But I came out of that RV, and there were...
And the heat can get to you because you basically are missing a couple radiators.
Oh, yeah.
Because your body, everyone's body gives off a lot of heat through their legs, and you don't have those radiators to give off heat anymore.
Yeah.
So you can overheat fairly quickly.
Exactly. And then so in addition to not having the radiators, my legs are encased in carbon fiber, so it's actually bottling in the heat on my legs instead. So it can really slow me down. But I came out of that RV in Houston, and there was just 70 people there waiting for me to run, and a lot of them were Marines. There's a local Marine recruiting office that came out, and they brought their poolies, people that were about to go to boot camp.
Awesome.
And they brought them out, and I'm like, well, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna even if they weren't there, I still would have ran it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, man, look at all these people that want to run with me, and so I just did it, and then it took a long. I think that was probably my longest. It was probably 4.5 hours of running, and there was a guy in his regular wheelchair that did it with me the whole time, just rolling in his wheelchair behind me. So that was a really tough day. So the San Antonio, Houston, Dallas were all really hot and really humid, and I had to do them back to back to back. But I got through it because people came out and ran with me, like kept me going. And then in Nashville, it had been raining that day, and I was running on a trail, and there were these wooden bridges over these little creeks. And I had run on wooden bridges before, so I knew they were going to be slippery. And I was like, all right, I'm going to take it slow over this. And I slipped on this bridge and injured my back.
Yeesh.
Not at the time. I didn't feel like I injured it at the time. I was like, it was kind of a hard fall, and I kept running. But the next day when I woke up in Atlanta, my back was killing me. And I had 4 left. And I just had to gut it out. You know, every time I landed on my right foot, it was like kind of shot a bad pain into my middle back, and it was a little bit frustrating because I was feeling so good up to that point, and I had run a super fast marathon in Memphis. I was feeling so good, and I was like, oh man, I'm going to be able to really enjoy these last 4, you know. And then, you know, the universe was like, nope, you're going to have to earn it, sorry. You're going to have to earn it. I'm going to be able to cruise these last 4.
And then you finished up on Veterans Day.
Yeah.
In D.C.
In D.C., Veterans Day. And my back was feeling a little bit better at this point, but still hurting pretty bad. And it was interesting because all up to that point, my stumps were feeling pretty good. I started to get these little pockets of fluid on the kind of the outer corner of both of them, and they hurt when I pushed on them. And then usually for the first mile, they would hurt pretty bad. And it got to a point where my mom had this like kind of icy hot spray. She was spraying that on the ends every day to help. And so, but after the first mile, that pain would kind of go away. I would just pound them into submission or whatever. And they would be like, all right, you're just going to keep going. We're just going to turn ourselves off or whatever. And so after the first mile, I'd be good, and they wouldn't really hurt it much more until the next day.
The boss is a knucklehead.
Just,
just keep going.
It's like, he hears us. He's going to keep doing it. And yeah, so after the first mile, they'd be fine. But on that last day in Washington, D.C., they just never turned off. And I think maybe it was because it was that same thing where I knew this was the last one, and my body kind of knew it was the last one. So it was starting to maybe let itself, it had held on to that last one, and maybe it was starting to let itself unravel a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so that whole last day was just pain in the back, freezing cold. It was like 20 degrees out. And so every time I stopped to rest, I was sweating. I was like, you know, I had a hot water bottle I was all snuggled up with under a blanket, and I would still be like cold. But just the sheer number of people that were there. There was never less than 100 people running with me that entire day.
That's awesome.
And there was people there that had run with me in other cities that came for the last one. I had brothers with me that had deployed to Afghanistan, all there running with me. I had, for my last mile, there was a general running. He was out in front. So we were running around the National Mall. My last mile around the reflecting pool it's about a mile. And so there was a general out front being like, clear the way. Because clearing people out of the way, you know. And then there was a sergeant major who had been my company first sergeant. So they were running like side by side, like, get out of the way. Politely telling people to get out of the way. Sergeant Major Kent, retired Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, top Sergeant Major in the Marine Corps, was running with me that last maybe 12K, singing cadences, you know. There was, I had brothers with me that were in the group. Their kids, Pam joined me for that last mile. My mom joined me. I had family in there for the last mile. And before we started that last mile, I promised, I was like, all right, everybody, I'm going to take this last mile real slow just so that everybody can stay together. And then by the end of I was like sprinting by the end of the last mile. Just so pumped up, to be finished. But man, it was so cool. And I finished that last little loop, and I kind of like ran up. There's this little curved sidewalk that goes up to the Lincoln Memorial. And so I finished that last mile, and I kind of curve it up to that last, and the whole sidewalk was lined with folks. And then they had set up a little finish line for me up there, and the whole thing was just lined with people like, yeah, and cross the finish line. Pam was there. We celebrated. She cried. I did not cry.
Check.
To make that clear right now. Finished, kissed her, hugged her, and then the reporters kind of came in and started talking. Awesome.
And you raised money.
Yeah.
You raised money, a bunch of money for. I know you support a bunch of foundations, so that was awesome too.
Yeah.
That was sort of the other driving force behind you doing it, besides just you're crazy, but also because you were raising money for a bunch of good causes?
Yeah, raising money. We raised $200,000. At the time I finished, I stopped keeping track, but it's probably like 215 now or something like that. For Semper Fi Fund, Tunnel to Towers Foundation, Coalition to Salute America's Heroes, and that was kind of how I almost physically manifested how successful it was. And so what I was trying to do is just create a story that people could feed off of. And so when you look at all the stories that are out there about veterans coming back, the vast majority of stories are the post-traumatic stress story. Every movie that comes out that is about a OAF veteran coming home is this pretty much the same recipe.
Mm-hmm.
Veteran goes overseas, they experience war, they see some bad stuff like you do in war, they come back and they're a basket case and they implode and they implode their family and all this stuff. And that's a hugely important story to know, because it does happen, and we have to take care of those guys, and we have to make sure we keep that story in the forefront of our minds. But what started to bother me was that was the only story that was getting told. And I think General Mattis said it best when he answered the question somewhere, and he said, expectations are very strong. So if you go overseas and everybody's kind of expecting you to basically have PTS, then there's a good chance that you're going to manifest that in yourself just by virtue of the fact that that's what's expected, and so you're just going to create that.
Yeah.
And so what I wanted to do was get this story out there, tell a story where there was a guy that went overseas, had a traumatic experience, and came back and was better than he was before. And so that was how I determined I was going to create this story. And I felt that I knew that this was a problem, that this story wasn't getting out there, and so I felt the responsibility to create it myself. If it's not out there, it's like what I was saying in that I can't journal. I had that responsibility because it just wasn't out there very much. And so I set out to create that story. And then, so if there was a guy that was struggling, he could see that story, and then he could see, it actually is possible to go see war and come back and be fine, or not necessarily be totally fine, but overcome it and find your new path and find your new mission and continue on and keep fighting for veterans, keep fighting for your brothers. And if there's a guy that's coming home and he's kind of on the fence, he sees that story and maybe takes him the right way. And then at the same time, getting it out there for civilians. There's a major military-civilian gap of understanding, because military tends to be isolated and on the bases. And, I could see that gap because of all these movies that were coming out. There's 100% of movies that came out were the main character had PTSD. Whereas you look at the statistics, and it's 25% of non-combat troops have what we'll call PTSD. 7% of combat troops have PTSD. And so it's a huge misrepresentation of the actual scale. And so I wanted civilians to see that story where here's a veteran that came home and was, he was able to kind of adapt or process what he'd seen.
No, I think that's 100% right. And I think you nailed it, and Mattis nailed it.
Yeah.
Like, you set the expectations that everyone thinks that when they go to war, they're going to be all screwed up. It's like, that's what's going to happen to them. But if they get told, hey, and I mean, you just said when you came home, you were better.
Yeah. And
that's awesome. And, I had that conversation with Sam Harris where, he'd asked me, he said, hey, you get told, I hear you saying that war is horrible and war is hell, but at the same time you say that it was like the best highlight of your life. And it was, and I told him, and he's like, how do you reconcile those two things? And I said, well, have you ever known someone that had cancer, and if they make it through, they say it made him a better person, and they wouldn't wish it on anyone, but it made him a better person. And he said, yeah, and it made sense to him then.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is an important thing. And look at every war has incredible veterans that come home and do incredible things.
Yeah.
And Charlie Plumb, when he was on, after being in the Hanoi Hilton for 6 years, and he rattled off the guys that were in the Hanoi Hilton with him, that were, presidents and congressmen and just all these incredible achievements, maybe not presidents, but incredible achievements. Well, presidential candidate with Stockdale.
McCain, yeah.
So, and McCain, right? Two presidential candidates. So incredible achievements. And yet the media and the Hollywood, they don't shine the light on that. What they shine the light on is the people that are having issues, which, again, like you said, that's real too.
Yeah.
But the fact that you made this huge effort and are continuing to make a huge effort to show not just civilians but also military that, yeah, war is bad. You say you had a traumatic experience, you had a freaking life-changing experience, and you've come back and you've proven that traumatic experience is not as strong as you are. Yeah. And I think that's the most important message that anyone could communicate back to both sides, both the civilian and military side.
Yeah, and there's so much to be said about knowing something is already possible. So I told you about Dan Knassen last time I was here, and back then he was about a year and a half in front of me, and he was showing me what was possible for me. I didn't know that it was possible to be able to walk around and with a huge backpack on and using no canes, but once I saw it, it's like, oh, so it is possible, and it just made it so much easier to do. And I was doing a talk not too long ago, and somebody told me afterwards that something that I didn't even realize. I was, how last time I was talking about finding IDs, and that we do that thing called proof the lane.
Yep. And
they told me that they just kind of mentioned to me that I kind of had continued. I did that in the Marine Corps, and I did this thing called proofing the lane, where I was proving what I was, stepping on the ground and proving it was cleared. And then they said that I didn't realize it at the time, but they said that theme is following you wherever you go. Yeah. So I'm now proofing the lane for these veterans that may be struggling a little bit.
Absolutely.
And so I'm proving what's possible. And so, yeah, I'm glad that they told me that, because that really makes a lot of sense to me.
That makes total sense. And Dan Knassen, who's a total stud.
He's about to be in the Paralympics.
Again?
Yeah, again. He's
awesome.
Going to Pyeongchang.
Yeah.
South Korea to I think he's doing biathlon and the cross-country skiing. So.
Yeah, no, he's a total beast, SEAL that also lost both of his legs above the knee, and just a total badass stud. I want to read a couple more little sections from your journal to close this out. Here we go, back to the journal. So when I get asked by people, how could you fathom, let alone complete, running 31 marathons in 31 days, I give them the same simple answer: because I am a Marine. And my mission to fight for my fellow veterans has not changed. And when a Marine is on mission for his fellow Marines, he is capable of anything. Therefore, when people ask me, haven't you done enough, sacrificed enough, I remind them that not only do I have the capability to accomplish my mission, be proud of my Marine Corps heritage, stay faithful to my fellow Marines, and keep fighting, I have the responsibility. I have the responsibility to keep fighting for my country, my Corps, and my fellow veterans. So no, it will never be enough. The day that I have done enough will be the day that 6 Marines lower my body into my grave in Arlington Cemetery. And how can I do it? I do it because it is my duty. And to do my duty is my honor. And one last little passage I want to read from your journal. It says, I am merely a representative of what is possible for any veteran, any person. So, as time passes, I do not want my name to be remembered. All I want to be remembered is the story. Years from now, when people speak about this, I want them to say, I remember that guy who ran all those marathons that one time. And their friend will reply, what was his name? And they will say, I don't remember. But he was a Marine. Well, Rob, I can tell you that I got a feeling that you will be remembered, and your name will be remembered, and the way that you have represented the Marines and America and mankind will be remembered. And remembered and revered as well. So, thanks for coming on the show again and letting us all know that we are capable of much, much more if we just step up and push a little bit harder. Been awesome having you back on, man.
It's been awesome being here. I mean, again, I'm glad I could come up with the material.
Yeah, man.
I was like, once you said you invited me back, I was like, I got to start writing some stuff.
No, you don't have to write anything, man. We can just come on and talk. Echo, you got any questions for the man?
Yeah. Was there any time, like during the 31 marathons, that you were like, oh, this is kind of lame? I'm kind of off this now. Were you ever did you ever think that? I mean, not even necessarily that you were like tired physically or nothing, just kind of like, you know, it's kind of.
That's interesting because I definitely got tired of doing the interviews.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But the thing with that is the interviews, you know, I wasn't doing this to get a bunch of, you know, people telling me I'm awesome, you know, or anything. But the interviews, so doing the marathons without the interviews would be pointless because the story wouldn't get out there without doing the interviews. But doing the interviews without the story, without doing the marathons is also pointless.
Right.
And it kind of got. The funny thing is, I did this because it was going to be hard. I did this because it was going to be really difficult.
Yeah.
And I knew that going in, and that's the whole purpose of it, was to do something that was hard. And then, you know, the last 4 days and in Houston and stuff, when it started to get hard, I was like, it's bullshit. Why is this so hard?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I was saying before, there was never a point where I was like, there's no way I can do this or anything like that. I was like, as long as I don't get severely injured by a mistake, don't get hit by a car, or break a bone or something, then I'm gonna be able to do this.
Yeah,
gonna get her done.
Yeah, I feel like every once in a while when I do something that takes a long time, like months or something like that, I get to a point every once in a while where I'm like, what am I doing here? Like,
yeah, it definitely gets. I mean, it gets repetitive for sure.
Yeah.
Do
That's
wake
what
up,
I mean.
okay,
Yes. Yeah.
wake up, run the marathon.
You don't listen to music. You don't listen to. Do you listen to podcasts? Do you listen to music?
I didn't really on the month of marathons, except a few times because
you had people with you talking.
I had people with me, and
you weren't just gonna be like, "Hey, I'm listening to a podcast. Leave me alone."
Yeah, well, sometimes I did do that. To be honest with you, there were times I did do that.
Hey,
sometimes
that Wednesday morning that Jocko podcast dropped. You're like, hey,
yeah.
You're hoping for a long one. One of the few people that was hoping for a 4-hour podcast to get you through.
Wait. I felt kind of bad in the last 4 because I told you my back was hurting so much, and I was like, every time I landed on that right foot, it would be severe pain, and then it would kind of make me like kind of gasp a little bit.
Oh yeah.
And so I felt really bad because there's a lot of people that were. They came out to run with me, and they were like talking to me and trying to help me keep going, but I just was not in the mood for talking, and I felt terrible because they'd be like asking me questions. I'd be like giving them the one word, like, oh, they'd be, what's your favorite place or whatever. I'm like, oh, I don't know. They're like, yeah, and so I wish I could have handled that part a little bit better and let those people talk to those people a little bit better. I'm sure they understand. why. And I kind of said it before. I was like, listen, everybody, if I'm not talkative, it's because I have this back injury. And
it's not because I don't like you personally.
It's not because I hate you.
Yeah.
But, so it's that. But, when it got hard, I fell back on my mission, and that's what I was doing it for. Whether or not I was hurting or didn't feel like doing it was not as important as the
Doesn't
mission.
have anything to do with anything, really, does it?
Yeah.
Just
No bearing.
Can I ask you? I want to ask your opinion on something, because I came up with a theory, and it's not totally thought out yet.
Mm-hmm.
Like my
but
theory.
this theory might actually get me killed. So please, Echo,
Of course.
defend me. I think that there may be something that's more powerful than discipline. And what anybody that's listening, Jocko reached for the knife. and maybe it's just that they're kind of go hand in hand, but I think the one thing that may be as powerful or maybe even more powerful than discipline is selflessness. And so the reason I say that is because I don't know, maybe the discipline leads to the ability to perform the selfless acts, but it seems to me like all the discipline in the world might not allow you to do something like lift a car off of your child, or dive on a grenade.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you're actually 100% right. I don't think that's a theory. I think that, when you take guys in combat, when guys are in combat and guys do incredible things and sacrifice their lives for their brothers, that is not about discipline. And, they're doing that because they're selfless and they want to take care of their friends. That's what they're doing it for.
Yeah.
And there can be people that are, undisciplined individuals that perform incredibly heroic things in combat. So no, I think that's actually correct. I mean, I think that's a extremely powerful force, and that may be that. And I was thinking about, the power of that. Where I thought you were going to say, where I thought you were going to talk about it was, you weren't doing this for yourself.
Right.
You weren't doing this for yourself. You were doing this to get a message out there, that you were doing this to raise money for others, for your friends, for your brothers. That is a more powerful thing than, hey, I'm just a self-disciplined person.
Right.
Now, discipline is like it's like they're in different. It's not apples to apples.
Yeah,
I don't think it's not like this is more powerful than that. No, because I'll tell you that if you want to perform well, if you want to achieve things, like you wouldn't be able to do this for these causes if you didn't have the discipline to train hard, to eat right, to get on the path, to stay on the path. You wouldn't have been able to do this, even though you really wanted to, even though you really, really wanted to, you really, really wanted to care about your brothers, you really, really wanted to raise money for those funds. If you didn't have the discipline to make it happen and train yourself and be ready, that you wouldn't have been able to deliver that. Just like a guy on the battlefield, they're on the battlefield because they were able to perform. They were able to have the discipline to get to that point. But they're two. I'd say they're related. I don't think they're definitely not opposing each other.
Right, yeah.
And in fact, I think that if I was to tell you, when I was in the SEAL teams, what the actual driving force behind the discipline that I tried to have myself wasn't for me. It was like, I want to be able to perform well on the battlefield, not because I want to perform well, but because I want to make sure I don't let my brothers down.
Yeah.
So I would say it's actually like a force that's a foundational force. It's like people that are heavily religious. Their discipline relies on their religious faith. People that are overachievers that want to accomplish something, their discipline is based on the fact that they want to get that achievement. So the discipline by itself, there has to be something that there has to be a foundation that's built upon. And I think a lot of times people build their foundation of discipline. The foundation that their discipline is built on is actually the fact that they want to take care of their friends. They want to be able to take care of their brothers. They want to take care of their family. You get all kinds of, you take a single mom that's working 3 jobs right now. Well, has to be highly disciplined. She has to be highly disciplined. She's got to get up every morning at 3 o'clock to get to the diner in time to start waiting tables. She's doing that. She has that discipline, not based on the fact that she wants to be stronger for herself. She's doing that so she can feed her kids. She's doing that selflessly so that she can feed her kids.
Yeah.
So no, I mean that's absolutely true, and I totally agree with you. Yeah.
Supporting. And I think the best way, the way to get the most out of yourself is to figure out a way to make it about something that you care about more than yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that discipline is a manifestation of selflessness in many ways. It's a way that you're, like I said, a single mom that's working 3 jobs. Look, let's face it. She doesn't want to work any of those 3 jobs. Yeah. She doesn't want to work any of those 3 jobs, but she's doing it. She's doing it every day, day in, day out. Why is she doing that? Why is she just showing that discipline and manifesting that discipline? Yeah. It's because she cares about her kids more than she cares about herself. Yeah. And that's all there is to it. And you could go to the battlefield and say the same thing. Why do Marines train so hard?
Yeah, exactly.
Why do we train hard in the SEAL teams? Why are we doing that? Are we doing that for ourselves? Are we imposing that discipline on ourselves? Are we having the self-discipline because we want to be good for ourselves? No, it's because we want to be able to take care of our friends. We want to be able to take care of our brothers. And you could go across the board with any of that. So I totally agree with you.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that I'm still alive now.
Check.
But could they at any point come into conflict with each other where you got to choose to remain disciplined or serve others?
I don't see how they would come in conflict with each other. And if they did come in conflict, I think you make a rational decision.
Yeah, you know, for sure.
Like, I mean, hey, am I gonna sneak my workout in? Like, what's more important to me, working out or going on a mission with my friends? Right.
Or your, I don't know, daughter's piano recital that they want you to be at, but you gotta, it's at a certain time. You gotta choose.
Choose between what and what?
Being disciplined with a workout that day.
Okay.
Or making the recital. See
right. I mean, obviously you want to make the recital, but if the choice was between making the recital and you have to go to your job and work. Well, if you don't go to your job and work, guess what? Now you don't have money to pay for your piano lessons in the first place.
Yeah. No,
you better think about that.
That's all I'm saying.
Better impose that discipline.
Is there a situation where discipline and selflessness will come into conflict? I'm just saying. Usually they support each other for sure. I think you're right. But is there a circumstance?
Yes,
is what I'm saying.
There is. You could actually focus on yourself and be like, hey, it's more important for me to take care of me than it is for me to take care of my team. And that's not going to go over well with the team, and you may end up being, a highly disciplined individual, but you have no outlet for it because you have no one to take care of except for yourself.
Well, and in that situation,
like you see, like what's the. I haven't watched the movie, but I know exactly. No, I'm serious. I haven't watched the movie. It's American Psycho, right?
Oh, yeah.
No, I haven't watched the movie, but I know exactly what the story is. The guy is like super highly disciplined, right?
Yeah.
Isn't he like the way he does everything highly disciplined?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But at the same time, obviously he's a psycho and he's not supporting anyone but himself.
Sure.
So that's like an extreme version of someone that cares about themselves.
Right.
And sure, they're highly disciplined, but being highly disciplined doesn't make you a good person.
Yeah, it doesn't automatically make you selfless.
No. Well, it doesn't make you selfless, and it certainly doesn't make you a good person either. Yeah. And you could certainly get into a situation where you get people that are
bank robbers.
No, I was
highly disciplined bank robber.
I wasn't thinking bank robbers, but you think, the people that are so into working out that trumps their family and everything trumps everything. Yeah, and they have an issue, right? Mm-hmm. They're so into it that they sacrifice. Yeah. Not even sacrifice. They just don't care.
Yeah.
It's when you meet someone that's so into working out that's a very selfish thing, right? Working out is a selfish thing, right? Yeah. Now, there's part of it that's selfless because you're working out so that you can stay healthy, so that you can take care of your family, you can take care of your friends, like we just talked about.
Capable.
But you can take that to a point, so you're capable of surviving and taking care of your friends and your family. But you can easily get to a point where, hey, the most important thing is me.
Yeah, my pull-ups.
The most important thing is me and my
numbers.
Yeah, my numbers. And you know what? I was danger close to this with jiu-jitsu because for a while I was I'd come home at night and my wife would be like, I was still in the teams.
Yeah.
And I was a task unit commander. Like that was the most important thing in my life. But I would still come home at night at 7:30 at night or 8 o'clock at night, and I'd grab my gym bag and I'd go train jiu-jitsu. And my wife would be like, "What the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?" And that was borderline, right? That was borderline. But for me, it was like, hey, this is a skill set that I should have when I'm on the battlefield, so I can take care of myself and take care of my friends. And by the way, that means I have a 1.001% chance that I'm going to come home instead of not come home. So I'm going to do it. And that right there, that's probably a little bit of rationalization because selfishly, I really love training jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So there's a selfishness there, and I just tried to rationalize a little bit, and you know
You're
that's
all
actually
good.
another
I'm
thing
not
we talked about in the first podcast with you is rationalization and how you got to be careful of that. You got to be careful of rationalizing everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are things that definitely can become problematic if that's, you know what, that's why there's a dichotomy. Yeah. That's why there's a dichotomy in everything, because you can go overboard with any personality trait you can go too far with.
Yeah.
And you can definitely go that's why discipline and freedom, it's actually a balance, even though discipline equals freedom. But guess what? If you have pure discipline, if you remove all freedom, well then what did you just do?
Enslave yourself.
Yeah, you enslaved. So there's balance. There's balance in discipline. There has to be balance in discipline. I think the reason that it strikes people to talk about discipline equals freedom is because most people don't make that connection. And most people lean so far towards just freedom of doing whatever they want that they end up enslaved from a different direction.
Yeah.
Which is equally, if not more problematic. And I say more problematic because now you end up in a situation where you're enslaved by something that's not good, that's not healthy, that's not positive. Whereas at least with discipline, if you're imposing the discipline on yourself, self-discipline, well then you're imposing things on you that are at least positive long-term. At a minimum, they're positive long-term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, can you go overboard with that? Yes. There's people that have eating disorders, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's people that have eating disorders. They impose such strict discipline that they're unhealthy. Yeah. And that's bad, and that's horrible. You know, I've heard back from some people that said, "Hey, you know, I have trouble with eating disorders." You know, it's generally been females who have more trouble with that category, and they actually have to use the discipline to say the correct discipline thing to do is to eat more, is to eat the proper amount of calories, because it's a horrible, horrible thing if you see people going through that, and it's a fatal disease. Right? Yeah. It's a fatal disease. And so again, to your point, you can become so disciplined that it's negative. Yeah. It's negative on your personal health. It's negative on your, you can work yourself. You can work yourself so hard. You can say, "Oh, I'm going to be disciplined at work." And now you lose the balance and you stop working out and you stop training and you start eating donuts. And you start eating donuts not before you run a marathon, but before you sit down in front of your computer. Yeah. So there absolutely has to be balance. But factually, the tendency, the tendency is I'm gonna be less disciplined, and I'm gonna do things that are easy. I'm gonna be in the easy path, and that leads to that's the 80%, 90%. I don't know what percent, but that is a vast majority of people. Vast majority of people don't need less discipline in their lives; they need more discipline. That's the vast majority of people, myself included, need more discipline, not less.
Yeah,
and it's almost about what you're being disciplined towards. So, like in the situation you bring up with the recital. You have the competing thing. So maybe it actually takes more discipline to forego your workout and realize what's more important.
Bigger picture discipline kind of thing.
People will say to me, like on Twitter, they'll say, "If you have real discipline, why don't you have the discipline to sleep in tomorrow? To get out of your comfort zone and sleep in."
Oh yeah, that's a different thing. But yeah, so you'd have to look at the bigger. Is there a bigger discipline? Then, right? Because you gotta consider your goals and stuff like that. You can't have the discipline to sleep in if that doesn't benefit your goal. It's not even discipline.
Yeah. And like the person that's struggling with the eating disorder, they're disciplined. At first, they were disciplined to lose weight.
Right.
Yeah.
And they need to change that discipline to be healthy.
Right. Consider the goal. Yeah. Exactly.
The goal needs to be
change
health.
the goal.
Yeah.
What a scary thing.
Yeah.
What a scary thing. You look in the mirror and you think you're overweight and you're not.
Some guys get that the opposite.
For sure.
Body
dysmorphia?
Dysmorphia, yeah.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah. So you can have it like, you think you always think you're fat, but you're really skinny. And then the other way is like you always think you're skinny, so you need bigger muscles, so
So you get on the juice.
Yeah, or whatever. The
asteroids.
And that's actually why we're here today at Echo. Me and Jocko, we talked about this earlier.
Too much krill oil.
You have big enough muscles.
Yeah. Thank you.
Your muscles are big enough.
Thanks, Rob Jones. This guy, so supportive, man. So supportive.
You should have seen him before he started cutting weight. Check. Speaking of health
and support,
Echo Charles.
Yes.
Is there any way that you could advise us how to support ourselves,
and each other,
and possibly
we just supported.
We support
Echo there.
We support. We did.
Actually, one of the benefits of having you on is you're very supportive, very encouraging, and I like that. But in the event of us wanting to support this podcast, in addition to each other, in addition to ourselves, or all at once, we can stay on Jocko Super Krill Oil.
I thought you were going to say the path.
Well, yeah, the path. That's bigger picture for sure, and we'll talk about that. But one of the methods to stay on the path is krill oil. You can lift a lot of weights. You can have strong muscles, kind of like when you tear your skin apart, I guess. Mm-hmm. But if your joints are all jacked up, they don't want to move. You're not lifting nothing. So, and this goes for everyday life. So, Super Krill Oil, Jocko has supplements, finally. Super Krill Oil, joint warfare, and discipline, which is a pre-mission, cognitive enhancer, force multiplier. Technically, what does force multiplier mean? It's like when you get one thing and another, and the sum is worth more than the parts.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah,
we'll go with it. You were so excited about that, I'm just going to let it roll.
Anyway, 3 supplements, right? Not counting the new one that's going to come out soon. So krill oil for your joints, joint warfare for your joints, and discipline, pre-mission. You take 8 cognitive enhancers, a little bit of caffeine in there.
15 milligrams.
15 milligrams.
Unless you drink multiple scoops.
Sure, then it's 30.
I did an event the other night, and I was kind of tired going into it, straight up. I was kind of tired, and usually my events are during the day, but this was at night. And so I was kind of like, I'd flown out there, and I was feeling a little bit, so I drank some discipline. And then I drank some more discipline. And I ended up having, I guess it was a sum total of about 5 scoops of discipline.
Sure.
So
too much discipline, this guy.
60 milligrams. But there's not just
the balance.
But anyways, I got done with the event and went up to, hung out with everyone for a little bit, had the little dinner thing, and then got done with that, and then hung out, and then went up to my hotel room, and I just sat there BTFing. And the funny thing is, I didn't realize. I was like, why? Because I had gotten up early in the morning, worked out, traveled, blah, blah, blah. Right. And I didn't realize, why do I have energy right now? Why can't I sleep right now? This is ridiculous. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? and then I didn't even realize it till the next day, because I went to bed at 1:30 in the morning, woke up at 4:30, and then I did like a stretch, came home, Jack Steele when I got home.
Of course.
Yeah, I got home, did squats, but... Which is nice because my arm's been jacked up, so I haven't been able to do. I'm not doing overhead squats right now, or even front squats.
Oh, right,
I'm just doing.
So
I am doing front squats with kettlebell.
Yeah,
and some of us have a bigger kettlebell than other people, but whatever.
Sure.
So you got to be careful. Don't have if you're not used to caffeine, because I'm not used to caffeine, because I only have Jocko white tea, which has the same 15 milligrams, or discipline. If you're not used to caffeine, that little 15 milligrams, and you drink a bunch of it, you're going to feel it. Don't drink it before you go to bed at night.
Yeah.
That's my warning. Unless you have stuff to do.
Unless you got stuff to do. Yeah.
Then get after it.
Yeah. You want to balance the discipline, for sure.
Yeah. You will feel sharp. Yeah. That's what's good about it. You feel sharp.
It's good. It's funny.
Physically and mentally.
When someone says, oh yeah, I'm drinking the discipline. You ever watch Spaceballs? Remember that show? Spaceball, when he's like, Liquid Schwartz. Remember?
Oh.
It's like the Schwartz is the Force.
Oh, liquid
It's
force.
you know what Spaceballs is, right?
Yeah, it
it's
was
a parody of Star Wars. So
yeah.
instead of the Force, it's the Schwartz, right? That's what it is,
Yeah.
Schwartz. And then he had the liquid Schwartz.
Oh, yeah. So
that
now
was
we
like
got
the
liquid
fuel or
discipline.
something. I forget. It was a while ago. Anyway, that's how you sound when you say I'm drinking the discipline. You can't drink the. You know, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think you meant to do that. Nonetheless, you get this at originmain.com. On the top, it says labs. Actually, a guy emailed me. It was like, hey, I can't find the discipline. I said, look within yourself. Then I said, go to originmain.com. On the top, it says labs.
You
Boom.
just made it
Click on
funny.
there.
I like that. Good job.
Brad's, I'm jumping back and forth. Anyway, that's where you get it. originmain.com. Also on originmain.com, they got some cool geese, all made in America. Rash guards, compression gear, tops and bottoms, rash guards, spats.
Spats.
Yeah, we're
Approved.
going with spats. Do they have the black out yet?
Yeah.
I don't have
They
any.
do.
All right.
Also look at start planning your schedule for the Origin Jiu-Jitsu camp. Immersion camp.
Yeah, it's not like
it's
not like a hardcore, that's the thing, and that's what Pete kind of this is what he was kind of telling me, where it's not like it's not like boot camp or something, which it would be cool too. It's not like a training camp for like an event. You know what I'm saying? When guys can't train
Although
for
we
ADCC.
are training.
Yeah, we're training.
We're training hard.
But it's more like you're in there to immerse yourself in jiu-jitsu. You want to train hard, you train hard. You want to learn hard, you learn hard. Whatever.
Well, the case in point, there's a lot of people that have never even trained before.
Yeah.
Literally have never trained before.
Yeah.
Got up, said, hey, before this morning's class, I need to get a gi.
Yeah.
Because I don't even have a gi.
Yep.
So, that's in August. You can check on the website for that, too. Come on up. Echo, Charles, and I will be there. You want to go?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's good
Come on
fun.
up.
It's like
fun.
this cool
be
camp. Yeah, it's dope.
You can start learning more than I taught you last time we did jiu-jitsu.
Oh yeah, the 2 moves that we had. I have jujitsu legs now.
Oh, you
I
do?
have
So
my
what do they look like?
Jujitsu legs.
Because I told you got to get rid of the hard thing.
Yeah, they were just the hard sockets, right? And so what I did was, I had trouble standing up.
Yeah.
So what I did was I had these two. I have the sockets that go on my legs. So what I had my prosthetist do is cover them in foam, and then so that's a little bit softer for people, so I don't hurt anybody. And then he made it so I could just stand on the ends of those sockets.
So the same height?
Yeah, so that they're the same height.
Awesome.
And so now
That's
I can
a game changer.
I use them to. I haven't started taking jiu-jitsu because I've been really busy, but I'm gonna. I think once we get back, my wife and I are gonna start going in.
Awesome.
And then I also use them to do some weightlifting stuff. I've been able to figure out how to do squats off the ground.
Nice.
Squats. And so it's awesome. So I'll be ready.
Yeah. No, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Because the biggest concern I had last time was the shell had like a
that
metal
valve on
thing.
it.
Yeah, a valve. And that thing was uncool.
Oh
He's
yeah.
jamming you up. Oh, man,
was uncool.
No, I didn't realize at the time that you were insulting me because
That's how I do
not
things
until
sometimes.
after. No, not until after. Because the whole time after we rolled, you were like, "Oh yeah, you're really strong, and then a couple times later, a couple podcasts later, you're like, "Oh, it's actually an insult." So
Yeah. It's you don't have any technique, but you're strong.
that's
It's
how
like one of
that's
those.
how I learned that I was almost optimistic to a fault. Was that when we roll? And you've talked about this before. When we roll, I was like, "There's got to be a way that I can catch Jocko. There's got to be some way." And that guy, who was the guy that's missing his hand that we rolled with? I rolled with afterwards.
Oh, Jeffrey L.
Jeffrey L.
Yeah, Jeffrey. I had him by the neck, and I was like, "Oh dang, I got him! I can't believe this, I got him!" And then afterwards, he's like, "There's no possible way you're gonna."
Yeah.
It's like I somehow was just so optimistic about what I can do to a fault.
It is that, and you're with so many people.
Yeah.
Majority of people, especially with jiu-jitsu,
99%,
fall in that category of well, and the other funny thing is you'll get somebody with something, and then they think to themselves, if I just stop that, then I'll be able to win.
Yeah.
I had a wrestler. This was back in the day. I was like a blue belt, and this blue belt, and I was going against this wrestler, like a really good college wrestler, and the look on his face every single time was just okay. Let's go again.
Yeah.
He was the first person that I realized that's the normal reaction, but especially for a wrestler, because wrestler that wrestle in college, man, they've been dominating people in high school. They've been dominating people in college. They know they understand grappling, and so when they get like submitted. They just can't. They just don't even understand it.
It seems like the one thing they never saw before.
Yeah.
And I don't know. You can give me some advice on this. Is it better? Because I've done it both ways. Is it better to submit them with the same thing every single time, which I've done that, or to submit them with something new every single time, where they just are dumbfounded?
Yeah, I think the second one, especially given what you said, because it's true. The wrestler, he's gonna have all this knowledge of grappling.
Yeah.
So, and it makes sense, So you see this one weird thing that you never seen in your mind. You're like, all right, that's just one weird kind of rare kind of thing. It's a feeling, and then but if you're like this thing, it's like, okay, this world is opening up now, and okay, I understand.
You realize it wasn't a fluke.
Yes, it wasn't just that one thing. Like how you said that one thing. I just got to stay away from his. Or putting my neck in there. I just got to stay away from that. That's all. So it kind of or deviates from that whole idea.
So we'll be having these discussions and many more at the immersion camp in Maine in August. Yeah, it's right before school starts.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, those are good fun, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, originmaine.com. Check it out. Good way to support. Also, Jocko talked about his new cool kettlebell that's heavier than mine. Nonetheless, I got the whole set on. You know what kettlebells I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
the demon or the primal bells,
monkey ones or whatever.
Yeah, gorillas. I think there's like a cyclops in there too. Anyway,
any more word on the Jocko head, or is that gonna happen?
Yeah, it's still work in progress. We're in the idea phase on that one still, but yeah, that's good. But nonetheless, you want the whole set. Go to onnit.com/Jocko. Really good kettlebells on there. Other exercise stuff on there too. You want to switch up your workout. I ran into that the other day. Like, dang, this workout is getting boring. So I just BTF through it.
Yeah. And then because it's good to do things, and you brought this up before, if you're not used to something, even though it's like we talked about squats, like going all the way down, which is what I'm used to. If I was to do squats to, what is it, parallel to the deck.
That's the standard.
Yeah, the standard. And then those squats would actually be a little bit harder for me for like a week or 2 weeks. And then I'd realize that going down in the hole is the place where you need to get.
Yeah, and it goes along with exactly what you're saying, how like your brain has to, it's called neuromuscular connection, where if you're used to doing a certain motion, you can do it way more efficiently. Mm-hmm. Put more weight on there. We're pretty efficient, and that's where gains come from. Yeah. Or a big part of where gains come from. So yeah, you just change the movement just a little bit. Boom, whole nother thing your body got to get used to. More gains to be had.
Well, that's the whole theory of West Side Barbell, isn't they change the way they do something every 3 weeks. They either instead of doing this bench press the same exact way, they do that for 3 weeks, and then the next 3 weeks they do it wide, or they do it with a different kind of bar, or they do it different range of motion. Yeah. So they don't allow their body to totally adapt. So they're constantly changing and just kind of.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool ways you can kind of manipulate that from workout to workout. But so if you want to vary up your workout with all kinds of different movements on it, they have some cool stuff. Battle maces, battle ropes, maces, some other stuff. Anyway, onnit.com/Jocko. Good spot. Also, when you buy the books that we sometimes review on this podcast, I got them all organized on JockoPodcast.com in the books section. Just click through there. It takes you to Amazon Prime, if you have it. And, get your book. Good way to support. If you're doing other shopping, continue. Do your shopping. Buy that lawnmower you've been meaning to buy. Also, subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. Seems obvious, I know. iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, and other podcast providing platforms. Also on YouTube, because we do have a YouTube channel, Rob Jones. Mm-hmm. I know you're on there sometimes. We have excerpts. I think that's really one of the main values is the excerpts of this podcast.
For sure.
Because because a lot of times, aside from seeing what you and our guests look like, the video version or whatever, the excerpts are shareable, and I didn't realize how valuable that was with the sharing thing.
Until when?
I think it's a gradually increasing understanding of the value overall. Nonetheless, I could go into a whole thing about that.
People that say like, hey, could you make an excerpt of this and make an excerpt of this and make an excerpt? You're just starting to realize that maybe they had a reason for that?
We'll just say I'm realizing it more. How about that?
Check.
Nonetheless, good value there, in my opinion, and a good way to support. So subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want. Also, Jocko has a store, if you didn't know already. It's It's called JockoStore. Go to JockoStore.com, and if you want the shirts that say discipline equals freedom, get after it. The Warrior Kid shirt, like this one.
Mm-hmm.
Or the shirt that Jocko always wears, the Victory MMA and Fitness. That's where you can get it. That's where you get it. JockoStore.com.
We need to make gray ones of these.
Gray,
Yeah.
like just gray.
Gray.
Oh,
Well,
like
yeah.
heather gray.
I don't care. I don't know.
Just
whatever.
gray.
Gray. Can we do that?
Yeah, but that's a general term. Gray. It's like you can't just say, hey,
All right.
You got to.
Well, I need gray shirts for the summertime that's coming.
I bet you,
like
got it.
there are 50 different shades of gray. There's a whole documentary about that, right?
Is there a documentary about that?
This guy. He for real doesn't know what you're talking about either. That's the funny
It's
thing.
a pop culture reference.
Yeah, 50 Shades of Gray, Nonetheless, I'll make the gray one, so there will be a gray Victory MMA and Fitness shirt available on JockoStore.com soon.
I like it.
I promise. Also, some women's stuff on there. Some patches. I just got the patches reordered, so they should be in there. Store's running better now. It is. So, check it out.
We're happy to hear that.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
It means a lot to us.
Yep, some hoodies on there. Some rash guards on there for various activities, including but not limited to jiu-jitsu, cycling.
Mm-hmm.
There was a guy on Instagram. I think he ran, a marathon,
Nice.
Representing?
Representing big time.
Oh,
with the
nice.
Get After It rash guard. He said he did it 50% better. 50% better.
Well, there you go.
There
Factual.
you go. The
That's
factual.
that's scientific.
Yeah, proof is in the
Absolutely.
pudding. So boom, rash guards. Yes, JockoStore.com. Look at that stuff. I'm not saying buy something. I'm saying if you want something, get something. Good way to support. Also, psychological warfare. I'm going to explain what it is. Again, it's no problem for me. It is an album, not a music album. It's a spoken word album with tracks. And these tracks they have a purpose, not just entertainment, like, oh, this is poetic. It is poetic, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is, for each track, is to get you through. When you're on the path, on the campaign against weakness, you'll run into these moments of weakness, right? Just little weakness insurgents, if you will. They show up every once in a while. Mm-hmm. So you listen to a specific track designated for a certain type of weakness that'll creep in. And the track is Jocko telling you why you should overcome this weakness. Why? Kind of how as well. It's not Jocko yelling at you. It's just a pragmatic, kind of in a way, these steps to take to overcome these weaknesses. Boom. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. What do you saw? Success rate on that one, in my experience. 100%. Good way to support.
You can also get Jocko White Tea on Amazon. It's called Jocko White Tea.
Sure.
And that's for people that want to deadlift 8,000 pounds. And this is another scientifically proven, factually double-blind placebo.
Placebo, yes.
Placebo proven.
Somebody I don't want to say somebody. Okay, there's this guy, he deadlifted a bunch.
Oh, yeah,
recently.
Yeah.
What's that? Who's that guy? He's huge. He's
Bjorn Thor.
Half Thor Bjornsson.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
He just won the Arnold Classic.
Yeah,
too.
he won the Arnold Classic.
So I've been seeing a lot of that video in reference to
No,
Jocko
a lot of people are
White Tea.
wanting to test him to see if he was on Jocko White Tea.
Oh, the Jocko White Tea.
Yeah. But they don't know
test.
that it does. No, you won't test. It doesn't test positive.
Yeah.
So he only did a little
The
bit.
test
though.
is the deadlift.
Yeah, he only did a little bit.
You know how they smell those things before he just smelled the tea bag.
He was snorted.
Yeah, that's what he did.
Yeah, so that's Jocko White Tea. You can get that, but that's coming in a can.
Yeah.
By the way, but it's in starting production. It takes a long time, but by the summertime, you'll be getting Jocko White Tea in a can, like one of the other energy drinks that just fill you with sugar and get you crazy. No, this is going to fill you with antioxidants, a little bit of caffeine, and some good tastes. So yeah, that's coming. Let's see what else. Books. Speaking of books, on Amazon or wherever, Way the Warrior Kid. You should have that book for all children, right?
Yeah.
Is there any children? Is there any child in the world that doesn't need Way of the Warrior Kid?
No.
Didn't think so. So get that. And speaking of Way of the Warrior Kid, there's a new Way of the Warrior Kid that is out right now, available for pre-order. So get it. And one of the things that I would like to do, everyone tells me things like everyone should get Way of the Warrior Kid. Every kid should read this book. Every kid should read this book in high school or in their school. People say that to me all the time because it's very simple, clear lessons that everybody should absorb. And it would help. It would have helped me if I had that book. It would have helped everybody when they had that, if they had that book when they were younger. So want to get this book out there to more kids. One of the best ways to do that, if you order Way of the Warrior Kid to Marc's Mission, order it from different sources. Get it from Amazon, get it from Barnes & Noble. Go to your local bookstore and say, hey, can you please order this book for me? We want to get it spread out where a bunch of different outlets are seeing the demand for it. That will increase the publicity that the book receives, and it will get into more kids' hands. That's my goal, is to get more kids to read Way of the Warrior Kid and to read Marc's Mission. So do that. It's live. Also, speaking of Warrior Kids, if you want to support a Warrior Kid, there's a Warrior Kid that's a farmer and a businessman. And he's making soap from goat milk. Why? Because he's getting after it. You can order some of that at IrishOaksRanch.com. And the motto, because he doesn't just make soap, he makes Jocko soap.
Sure, yeah.
Hey, he wanted to make good soap.
Dig it. Yeah.
I quote, I want to make good soap. G-O-O-D, capitalized.
Yeah.
So he makes Jocko soap. Smells like coconut, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, because I like the smell of coconut.
Yeah, is there coconut in it?
Yes.
I didn't find it to smell like coconut.
It smells, it definitely, you don't think it smells like coconut? Well, maybe you have a more sensitive Hawaiian.
Yeah, olfactory
senses.
situation.
Yeah. But the motto for JockoStore, stay clean.
Yep.
Discipline equals freedom, field manual. Again, I was traveling around. I signed a lot of these books when I just traveled around. When I was in Australia, a lot of people brought it in, and that was awesome. A lot of great feedback. One thing that's good, if you have that book and you like it and it's helped you, get it for someone else that you know that wants to get on the path or should be on the path. So that's pretty easy to do. Also, the audio version of that book does not exist on audible.com. It exists on iTunes, Amazon Music, Google Play, other MP3 platforms. It's an album with tracks.
Sure.
That's why we did it that way. And finally, of course, Extreme Ownership. The new version of Extreme Ownership is out. The black one, which looks cool.
Yep.
It's got a little excerpt, new beginning, and it's got an excerpt of Q&A from this podcast in the back, which is solid.
How long is that part of it? I don't want to say, how much of that is
I think there's 8 questions. I mean, and they're, answers, which is
pretty robust answers.
It's fairly robust, yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of leadership, we have a company, Echelon Front. We solve problems through leadership. That's what we do, and we do it all the time. It's me, Leif Babin, JP Donnell, Dave Burke. You can email info@echelonfront.com, or you can go to our website, echelonfront.com. And, of course, there is the Muster, which is a leadership gathering, a leadership seminar, a leadership conference. What do you learn there? Pragmatic leadership skills so you can win. That's what you learn. We're only doing 2 this year. We're doing 1 in Washington, D.C. You coming May 17th and 18th?
Yeah.
Okay. So you can come meet the Rob Jones. And then we're doing 1 in San Francisco, October 17th and 18th. The DC one, by the way, right now is it's more than half sold out right now. So these are both going to sell out, just like all the events that we've done have sold out. So if you want to come, register as quick as you can, extremeownership.com. We'll see you there. And until the muster, if you want to hang with us, we are on the interwebs. We are on Twitter. We are on Instagram. And we are on That's Your Facey Boy. Echo is at Echo Charles. I am at Jocko Willink. And, of course, Rob Jones is at Rob Jones Journey. And he also has robjonesjourney.com. And on top of that, Rob Jones has his own podcast now.
Boom. One episode.
He's 1 episode deep.
Boom.
1 episode deep. He's on the path.
Yeah.
The podcast is called Use the Weight.
Yep.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I remember
Use
that
the
one
Weight,
too.
which is...
Wait till you see the logo.
Yeah.
Legit.
Yeah, so you can get that wherever podcasts are available.
Yeah.
I've listened to the first episode. You talk about getting after it.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, you talk about how to get through a lot of things. So it's awesome.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of an advice style podcast right now where people are asking me questions. So all those people listening to this, if you're sending question after question to Jocko and he just refuses to answer, he reads it and then just throws it in the trash. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, if anybody has questions that they want to get answered by me, then send them to me at robjonesjourney@gmail.com or through my website or through social media, and I will answer them.
You just gave out your website on this? That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, my email.
You're fired up. Yeah.
Oh no, well, that's my special email. That's not like my personal. That's my special email that I give out for stuff like this. And it also helps to keep it kind of separated, so I can have all my questions. I can just check that email.
Oh yeah. So you don't gotta sift through.
Yeah. So I have to sift and organize.
Like the way I have to sift.
Dang, yeah, I gotta learn that lesson too a little bit.
Yeah. Did I miss anything else from your various platforms?
No, I mean I am working on a book too.
Oh, awesome!
There's no real, date to release date or anything, but I'm hoping it's going to be a book about veterans and the positive, and just continuing to create that story that I was talking about earlier about just telling that side of the coin about veterans that come home and are fine.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping it's going to be, right now I'm kind of making it kind of like, you ever read anything by Plato? Well, he does like basically all of his writing is conversations that Socrates had.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make it kind of like that, where it's just basically just a series of conversations between two people.
You know what? And this, I just thought this while you were saying this, because I think this is another important thing on that exact subject. And we were talking earlier about these two categories of like the vet that comes home and he's good, and the vet that comes home and he's a little bit off track.
Yeah.
But I would like to say, and I know you're going to agree with this 100%. Just because you're a little bit off track doesn't mean you're going to you can't easily get back on track. Or I've known all kinds of veterans that they were off track a little bit for a little while, and then they figure it out and they get back on track. They find a new mission. So, the guys, and that's actually fairly common in my from what I've seen. And actually talking to a lot of guys that went through Vietnam, and they'd come home from Vietnam and they were a little messed up when they got home, and they got through it, got over it, and got it out of their system and moved on. And again, I've talked about this before. When you got done with World War II, you sat on a ship with a bunch of other vets for 6 weeks and you debriefed everything on a ride home. And you got that out of your system and you got to communicate and you moved through it mentally. Yeah. Vietnam, they didn't have that opportunity. Vietnam, it was, you're in Vietnam today and then tomorrow you're in San Francisco. Yeah. Alone, by the way. You're not with anybody else. You're not with any other veterans. Nowadays, we do a pretty good job of when you come home, you're coming home with your unit, you stay together, you have people to talk to that have the common experience. But yeah, to the vets out there that are thinking, oh man, I feel like I might be one of those guys that's not on the right track right now. You can get back on the right track. Yeah. And it's finding your new mission and moving down that path towards achieving it.
And just trying everything that you possibly can. Like for me, it's easy to figure out what I needed to do because there was a system in place and it's an obvious physical injury. But with the mental injuries, we don't exactly know how to fix them yet. But you just have to keep trying this. All right, try talking about it with a therapist. Didn't work. All right, try, hyperbolic chambers or whatever. Try this, try that. And just because you tried one thing and it didn't work out doesn't mean that you don't want to. That doesn't mean that you now are fine with, nightmares and stuff. You just got to keep trying everything until everything is exhausted. Yeah,
and I'll tell you, I've in talking to Jordan Peterson, the couple times we've had him on here, into listening to him, in reading his book, it's become very obvious to me, and it's sort of reflective of something that Dakota Meyer said on the podcast, which is like, hey, there's your brain, your mentality, your psychology is a system. And just like you have a system to move through when you have a physical injury to get healed or get corrected, Well, it's the same thing with your psychological state. And if that psychological state is off a little bit, well, there's people that know how to fix it. If you listen to when Jordan's talking about the way that he would bring someone through a problem, there's a systematic way to do that. Yeah. And I never really understood that until I started listening to him, because, when they'd send us to the psychologist to debrief a deployment, for me, it was just sort of, I had the negative attitude of, I'm not going to tell this guy anything because I don't want them to think I'm crazy, and I don't want to get, put on whatever, thing. And so I just was, hey, I'm just going to move forward.
Yeah.
And that was sort of my attitude. And I'll tell you, when I was in, that was a very common attitude was, hey, look, I'm not going to tell this psychologist doesn't know what I've been through.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to tell him anything. That was very common. And again, I think for me, listening to Jordan, because I would have been, 2 years ago or a year ago, before I started listening to Jordan Peterson talk, I never really saw the connection. And then it really solidified it when I heard Dakota talking about it, saying, look, I put the two and two together. When I heard Dakota talking about it, like, there's people, just like if you wanted to get good at Olympic lifting, you'd go to an Olympic. If you tried to figure that out on your own, it would take you forever, and you might get hurt. You might get hurt worse. Yeah. Whereas if you went to a real Olympic lifting coach and said, hey, I want to learn the clean and jerk and the snatch, they would say, okay, here's where we're going to start. We're going to start with the PVC pipe, and then we're going to go through the motions. Then we're going to get better at this, and then we're going to do high pulls, and they're going to walk you through the whole system. And a psychologist will do that with your brain. They'll say, oh, okay, I see what you're scared of needles, as the example Jordan Peterson gave. Here's what we're going to do to get you used to needles. Well, when you come back from a traumatic event, here's some things that we can do to revisit that. And I think the same thing that you talked about earlier with like movies, I think the part of my prejudice against psychologists came from the way that they're portrayed in movies as being like, sitting on this couch and like these weird people that, and it's not, it's more pragmatic than that. At least it seems that way to me. So
it's like a trainer kind of, or like a
it's more like a trainer, more like a coach, right?
Therapist,
more like a coach, or more like a jiu-jitsu instructor. That's saying like, hey, here's what you need to do here. You get caught in this position, here's what you need to do. The psychologist says, oh, you're having bad dreams about this. Okay, let's try these things. And I don't know what those things are, because I don't know. I'm not a psychologist, but they do know. Yeah. They do know what to tell you to do, and they do know how to help you get through those things. And just like jiu-jitsu, or just like athletic training, or just like Olympic lifting, it's going to vary for different people. And a good psychological coach is going to know how to make those adjustments and say, oh, you're feeling this a little bit more. Oh, it's because you came from this kind of family, so this is what's going to help you. But you came from a different kind of family, so this is going to help you a little different way. Yeah. So I think those things are important to think about. And again, I just wanted to reemphasize the point that just because you might be in a rut either as a vet or just as a human being, there's every little decision you make, you can start moving in the right direction and moving towards a better place in your life and everything that you're doing. So just wanted to bring that out. Echo, you got anything else?
All good. Good to see you again.
Oh man, it's so awesome to be here and just be included among the people that you guys deem worthy of. It takes a long time to do this. It takes a lot of preparation, and it's just for you guys to take that time and spend it on preparing to have me as a guest. It's a huge compliment and a huge honor.
Man.
It's an honor for us. Do you got any other closing thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to point out that I'm the one here in the hot seat, and I'm getting all the accolades and
sure.
But I didn't do anything that I've accomplished without people helping me. I like to. It's kind of like a pyramid. Like I'm the tip of the pyramid. I'm like the thing that everybody likes to see, and it's the top of the pyramid, but there's a whole gigantic base underneath this pyramid that if the tip didn't have it, then the tip would just be a stupid rock. And so, I, all the way since my recovery, I've had supporting people in my family, and especially on this month of marathons thing I just did. If my wife hadn't been there, if Pam hadn't been there, then it's not happening at all. I mean, there's some things that I could say, I could have done it, but it wouldn't have been as good. But this thing would not have happened without her. I totally gave her the reins. I, set it up, and if there was any question she had about overall, vision for what I was trying to accomplish, she would ask me. But like when we had a couple hiccups along the way, and I just totally 100% trusted her that she'd be able to take care of it, and she did every single time. And I'm sure I'm not giving even enough credit. So there's probably 1,000 things that she did I don't even know about yet. But I mean, I just owe her huge. And then also my mom, same thing, just being willing to withstand a month in an RV with 4 people, and probably putting up with me being grumpy or whatever, in pain and stuff. And I couldn't imagine having, 2 people along with me that would have made it better, or that I would have trusted as much. And then also my buddy that drove, and then just all the people that kept me going, that ran with me and, deemed me worthy of their time, and the people that sent me messages of encouragement that couldn't make it out. I just owe everybody a huge debt of gratitude. And I'm going to do my best to continue to keep fighting and earn that respect and earn their effort, earn their sacrifices as much as I can.
Awesome. Well, obviously, Rob, it's an honor to have you back on here again. I look forward to whatever the hell kind of crazy thing you do next. I'm not sure what it's going to be, but I'm sure it'll be something awesome. And, of course, thanks to everyone for listening to this podcast. Thanks to the service men and women that are holding the line day and night, fighting against evil. Thanks to police, law enforcement, firefighters, paramedics, other first responders that are always on call to protect us here at home. And to everyone that's listening, I want to refer to one last journal entry that Rob wrote, and something that we talked about the last time that he was on, and that was using the weight. Because the weight of the world can be heavy. The weight of the challenges and the trials of life can drive you into the ground. And that weight can wear you down and break you. But instead of letting the weight wear you down, instead of letting the weight break you, you can use the weight to make yourself stronger, to make yourself tougher, to make yourself better. And that is what I recommend everyone does. Just like Rob says, use the weight. Now, get out there and get after it. And until next time, this is Rob Jones and Echo and Jocko. Out.